Big love, big welcome to anybody that has found themselves here. I hope you guys are all thriving. Systematic. Big love, dear brother. I hope you are well. I take it you're probably at work right now. Am I right? Big love to the other person watching at the moment. I think there's 4 of you. The numbers just seem to flash back to 4. Namaste, Om Shanti. It's an honor to be here for you guys and with dear TallTree, Jeremy. And I think we've got a little conversation on the go here. The esoteric pendulums of being and creation. I think it's a fun topic. Welcome, dear brother. It's absolutely awesome to have you. 6 a.m. on his side of the world. So it's a big ask. And it's great to have you here at your best, first thing in the morning. And tell us a few words, dear brother, for new people that haven't seen you.
Well, how's it going, guys? I think our discussion is gonna rotate around probably themes of polarity. And you sent you sent me a good voice message earlier, and I was hoping we could hit on some of those points that you were mentioning, if you remember what those were.
Dang. Nah, you got me. Okay, give me a minute to think this through.
No worries.
Sidekick here. He wants to get down on the floor and chew my toes. He's quite the little character, aren't you? Did he give you a kissy? Yes. He wants attention. He's like like a woman, He's like a wife. My girlfriend's not like this. she's chilled, Yeah.
He's high maintenance.
He's high maintenance. He makes up for my girlfriend.
Yeah.
Who's not
aren't parakeets used to? They're very they're like flock birds, right? They like to be in big flocks,
Yes.
chattering to each other all the time.
Yes. Yeah. So what were we talking about? Well, the polarities of being. Some of the things mentioned, and for those of you that don't know Jeremy, he's been on the round table. He's grounded. He's embedded within martial arts. He's a bit of a philosopher. He's very grounded with the physical plane and the shamanic ancestral energies, and he's just such a lovely breath of fresh air. And
I try.
We love having Jeremy on the show. And so I think the voice note that I sent you might have mentioned something along the lines of the polarities that we experience in life are quite definitive for who we become, right? And we have to sometimes have a hard edge, right? You've got a girlfriend, a wife, partner, child. If a dangerous animal or a dangerous person approaches your lady or your child, Jeremy the bear comes out, rah, claws, right? But if it's like, friend of the family, then it's like, teddy bear. And so we've all got the teddy bear and the claw bear in us, ready to pounce out at any point. And society produces a challenge for animating these different elements, because now we've got like new weird things to deal with, like financial world, monetary world, legal world, all these other elements, which is a problem. Like, I must admit, I was pretty happy and pretty respectful to see that China was deciding to take like proper action against people that do things to children, right? It's interesting to see, because people that do things to children tend to get away with it in the West, don't they? It's not a big deal. The same as people who do things to women, right? Who like take women against their will. Like you'll get more jail time for defrauding a corporation than what you will for walking up down the street and taking some random woman and doing to her whatever you want to do to her in your world deepest, darkest fantasies, right? Your deepest, darkest fantasies in a woman, you're probably going to get a few years. That's the reality of it, right? Maybe less. Maybe after good behavior, 1 or 2 years. This is not uncommon. But go and defraud a big corporation, it's 10, 20 years, man. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, money has got a higher value than human life, basically, or you know, which is a real issue. Big love, dear Gaz. Namaste. I hope you're well, and to everybody else joining the show. So, yeah, you know, in life we have to make these fairly difficult decisions all the time, and we have to polarize ourselves. You know, you walk past a homeless person on the street, you want to give them food, then you see there's a lot of other people who need, you want to give them all food, then you realize, but hold on, what resources have I got? What has my kid got? You know, then you've got to start thinking practically of what do you have access to? What can you give? Then you sometimes have to be like, no, now I can't. And then you've got opportunists out there that know how to ride the system. Big love, namaste, Hollow Bonehawk. I did mean to give you a call before I got here, but you know my son. High maintenance, just like a Gotham. So yeah, I mean, those were some of the things that I brought up. Also, I'd like us to sort of look at the fundamental structure of the psyche, you know, the way the psyche is rigged up, how much of what we act out in the world is our oppression. We all know that we have shadows, but do we realize that a lot of our interaction on day to day is our shadow self coming out? Our life is spent on autopilot, and how much autopilot time is just really an opportunity for the shadow to, you know, to beat out its repressed or suppressed aspects of the psyche into the world, and we don't recognize and realize it. So I think those are a few of the sort of shadow pieces related to the polarities. And then of course, there's ideas of, like, you know, the sentience and the unconscious and what that represents from a perspective. Then the relationship between thinking and feeling, right? Something we've been taught not to feel, we've been taught to just think. How this relates to the Hermetic principle of polarity, and the relationship between the principle of rhythm and vibration. Rhythm being a reflection of that autopilot that we were talking about. Vibration being the implementation of a particular vibe, a particular state of being that we choose to emanate from ourselves. So those are some of the ideas. Yeah.
So there's I'm not muted. There's this thing that you can do. It's kind of like meditation, but it's basically it's just humming. You know, you just sit somewhere, or you do it while you're walking. You just hum. You know, you can play with the tones. You kind of move it up and down, you know, into your sinuses or around. And there's something about the humming, your own hum, which is yours, that, well, at least in my experience, at least it'll bounce you out very quickly. And because there's a couple things going on. There's a few things going on. One, it's you're breathing longer. You're exhaling longer. So you breathe in, and then that exhale is long. It's a long exhale. And you're kind of the vibration is kind of, you know, shaking up your brain and your eyeballs, and it can feel, and you know, can feel nice. And you're thinking, or maybe you're not really thinking, but if you can just think about, you know, the sound, like, what does the sound like, right? And so that kind of balances you out. And then so you do that for like 20 minutes, and then you're kind of like at this level playing field, right? This level playing field. If you can't get to 20 minutes, then you can work on it. And from there you can move forward in life. And if you're if you're if you know if you're practicing your awareness, you can start to pay attention to the things that come in after that session, and they're usually going to be things that you need to work on. And what I mean by work on is that, the shadow, I don't know, maybe it's different for some very spiritually elevated people, uh, which I'm not. But the shadow's like always going to be there, working in the background, you know, um, and for good reason, because the shadow needs to be integrated, right? Because it's not going to go anywhere. It's like you can't just ignore it and think that it'll go away. The shadow is like, it's like this culmination um of like desire. Desire in kind of like uh that Buddhist idea of attachment. I hope I have that right. It's kind of this very worldly thing, um of like wants and needs, uh and petty bullshit. But it's good to swim around in your shadow sometimes, uh because that balances you out too. But through your waking life, it's important to understand that what your th- where might your thoughts be coming from, and the thoughts that then motivate you to take action in your life. um and being able to discern deeply where the thread of thought and action is coming from, and orienting you to, uh is part of is that work. And it's kind of like, it's a daily, it's a moment to moment, sort of thing, because you want to be, well, for me at least. We have free will, but I want to be oriented towards, the greatest good for, myself and my family, and then, the greater world out there around me, right? And if it was just pure shadow all the time, 24/7, um I could probably get very far in life and become very successful. But I would be one of those, lecherous, psychopathic, creatures at the top of some, you know, petty pyramid, uh, and in no way aligned with, the good and the beautiful, and God and all that. It'd probably be a very dark and lonely place.
Yeah, I think this is like quite an interesting perspective. What we've been taught in our schooling situation. I can't get enough of this cocoa. Even though I noticed now, like I've got bits of cocoa on my teeth. But anyway, I'm the guy with cocoa teeth. You can't go without your morning cocoa. Like, come on. um, I think like a lot of our conditioning. Big love, big love. Everybody in the chat. I see there's 12 of you guys on now. Numbers seem to have been escalating and shifting around a lot. My camera seemed to be bad earlier. I had to switch broadband. I have to phone my internet provider for my fiber today. But yeah, there's this conditioning that we've had since school, that we've got to sort of chase the money. We've got to chase the success. It was drummed into us since we were really young, right? And that we've got to be financially productive. No, you can't study that because you won't get a career in that. You won't make money out of that. Don't study art, it's a waste of your time. Don't study music, it's a waste of your time. Study maths, study science. The future is going to be in accounting, computers, right? And this is basically what they were teaching us in school. And it's like, it's by design. It's not like, oh, well, that's just the world is. No, the world has been designed that way because we were all brainwashed to believe that that's how the world will be. And so we were all schooled into taking particular kinds of education to shape our minds to think in that way so that we could manifest this world that we're living in. Had most of the children not been driven towards accounting, then there wouldn't be so much financial stuff happening these days, right? In my school, accounting was like a subject that everybody took. I was one of the few people who didn't take accounting. It was like a thing, like everybody was like, they were taught, like, you need to do it. One day you're going to have your own business. You're going to need to be able to do this. You need to do your taxes, do that. You need to understand how, to work spreadsheets and this and that, and so that you understand what's going on. If you own a company one day, then you'll know what's going on. If they can't cheat you, And South Africa is very much small business oriented, right? Or we work for ourselves. We don't really. There's not so much employment in South Africa. It's more like you figure out what you want to do and you do it. We're a very self-determined people, more so than anywhere else I've ever seen in the world. And in terms, well, maybe India. India is very self-determined, right? Most people just come up with a business plan and they do their business, and that's what they do. That's what they make a living. They don't go and like stand and look for a job, right? It's not that common. So I'm sure COVID has changed a lot of that, right? Super corporations coming in and taking over and grabbing up the economy and forcing people to like fall for the ploy of employment. But the whole idea of, and tech, right? We were all pushed towards sciences and math. We all had to do maths and science. It was such a big deal. And, for example, my school, right? Our music department was one of the best music departments. Yeah. Our head of music was often out of the country. And he was out of the country because he was playing in Philharmonic Orchestra. And he was out of the country because he was playing in Carnegie Hall, right? So he was literally one of the top 5th trumpeters in the world. Like in what was his name? Ian Smith. So he was like, considered one of the world's top trumpeters. And so we had like really good foundational. Our art teacher, Miss Boyle, she was a famous artist. She didn't need to work to make money. She was famous, right? She was like a proper artist. So we had like a really amazing art department and a really amazing music department that were run by like professionals. Where normally in schools you'll have like an art teacher that didn't really make it as an artist, but they teach art, or a music teacher that didn't really make it as a musician, but they teach music. But in our school, we had like the top of art and music, probably the best in the country, arguably. And we were being cautioned about taking art and music as subjects. If you think about it, it's ridiculous. Those are the two best faculties that we had, but there weren't that many students in that. The classes were really small because everybody had been told, no, you never make a living out of art. You never make a living out of music, even though we had an example of someone who has made a great living out of music, right? And an example of someone who's made a great living out of art to teach us. So, it just goes to show that even in a place where you had the best of art and the best of music available, you were still being cautioned against it. And so people that would have been musicians, would have been artists, would have gone into a different walk of life, ended up walking into computer sciences, IT professional. IT was being pushed like big time when we were in school. We were being told like IT is going to be the future. So your best bet is to start getting yourself ready for computer sciences because that's the future, right? And the internet hadn't really been launched yet, but we were being told that the internet was coming and like this is the new world coming and getting prepared, like the world is going to change. You got to be on vogue with the world. So this was going on all around the world. ask me why the internet came. Well, if you tell everybody that the internet's going to be there, and you get everybody to work on that, becoming that kind of a career, and then you've got a billion people to work on that project, guess what happens really fast? It becomes a thing, right? So is it that it was coming and the people were being told that it's coming, or was it that people were being told that it's coming so that they would build it? Do you see the distinction there, Jeremy? And so they built it, right? And it's largely my generation that has built the internet, basically, right? I was matriculating, 1993? Yeah. And so people were coming out and going to university, 1995, 97, 98, they had their master's degrees or whatever, and they were working in the industry. And by the early 2000s, the internet started to really bump up to the next level, right? The late 90s, it was sort of staggering along. By the early 2000s, it was starting to flourish. Well, that just happens to be 7-8 years after my generation came out of school. So I was in the generation that watched this brainwashing happen. And that was like triggering our shadows, triggering our fear, triggering our, you're not going to be able to make it in the world because the world's going to change. You need to start getting ahead of the ball. And, you know, a lot of people took this advice and they became CEOs. And a lot of the people I went to school with, when I look at them on Facebook and stuff, I'm like, I can't relate to these people. I was like, bloody hell, you're like an MD of this company, or you're a CEO here and you're this. And, you know, it was a Masonic based school, to be fair. But I think that was a general trend, because most of the young people I knew, when they went to study, they were studying the same kind of subjects. IT was probably one of the biggest subjects studied by my generation.
I think that if you want to be really good at something, so, you know, music, you know, that if you want to do one of those things where you really have to, you know, tap into the muse, and you have to learn how to trance and become divinely mad to like eke out something authentic and original, that's that's like true art, you know, whether it be, you know, a medium like painting or music. It seems like there's a degree of suffering, maybe even a high degree of suffering that comes with that. And it's not as if you're prepared, you know, you can necessarily prepare for that, but you can be, you can be warned and, you know, encouraged, but, you know, when you have these, you know, because humans, you know, we need that sort of thing. We need it for ourselves, which is why art persists, but we need it culturally, you know, for the spirit of humanity. You know, we need that sort of stuff, because it keeps us alive. You know, for the most part, certainly here in America, uh, there's for me at least, there's a big issue with uh, how ugly architecture is. You know, for the most part, you know, you walk around places, you drive around, especially in parts of the middle of the country, like the Rust Belt and, out west and things like that. The building, the way things are built is it's so ugly. It's terrible to look at. Even out here where I am in Northern Virginia, which is like one of the richest areas of the United States. There are these areas where these houses are built. It's like they leveled all the trees and they built these big houses, right? And they're just kind of like one's here, one's here, one's here, one's here, one's here. And you look out your window and you're just like looking at everybody else and your big ass ugly house. And I don't know, it's like people have been conditioned to look at something like that and see success. Like there's this dissonance because they don't know any better. Maybe they've never been to Europe, and seen old European cities, you know, like Prague or rebuilt Dresden, and seen some of these old world buildings that are just astounding, or never seen a cathedral and seen what is possible for humanity to build, when they are channeling something real and doing it for, beauty's sake. I know there's like a practical, you gotta live somewhere, right? We all have to live somewhere. We all have to have a roof over our head. It's not gonna be perfect. However, but so if you want to do something great, if you're of small means and you deem yourself an artist and you have talent in something, you may just have to be broke your entire life. Who knows? But you may create something that is actually good. That is a real piece of art that no one's going to be able to replicate, or take away from you. And there's guys like that out there. I know a couple guys like that. And they are like the best people you'll ever meet. But when it comes to to the school, you can't we can't rely on public school to give us much. It's really to teach us how to live, right? To live. You think about living and you think about dying, and when you're dying, maybe you're hours from death, an hour, a minute. What do you think about? Well, I imagine that there's probably going to be sort of like a cascade of like, what have I done, and what should I have done? I don't know. I'm not dying yet. I mean, we're dying every second, but I'm not that close to the other side yet. And I probably within those moments, it really becomes clear, oh, I was doing it right. It's very clear what life is about, what living is about, relationships, nature, um, those sorts of things, and not 9 to 5, uh, corporate ladder, that sort of thing. Though, don't get me wrong, people need 9 to 5s. You have to, like, practicality. You do have to survive. Yeah, I got to make money. You got to eat. You got to provide. I understand. right? It's like when you take those things and make it your when you attach your soul to it, might become a problem, because then there's an issue of propagation. But I kind of lost my train of thought there. Bushwish, why don't you why don't you say some words for a minute?
Yeah, brother. I'm having loads of problems with the StreamYard. And this is a pattern. I'm going to have to switch back to some other device, some other system. I can't share images on the screen. It says, try this later, which it shouldn't be doing, right? It's a simple procedure. Like share a picture, pictures that I always share. It's not like it's the format of the photo or something. It's like an image I share often. So I'm trying to find an alternative solution. But I think you're right. You know, we definitely have lost something. Well, this is what I'm taking from what you're saying. You know, we've lost something from the past. We've lost that basic application to apply ourselves. And I think this is what happens when the shadow takes over. You talk about the buildings, right? So the shadow is when you're in autopilot mode, when you're just doing what you're told to do. You're told build a wall, build it cheaply, build it straight. So you build it, right? You're not present. You're not consciously part of the process. Where in the old days, people didn't just build a wall, they put their heart and their soul into the wall, right? It was a work of art. You build a house, you build a building. That was your reputation being built. You were going to tell people, I built that building. People are going to go, wow, John, you did well. That's an amazing building. Instead of it's just like a no-name building. Who knows? Who cares who built it? It's the same like every other building. It's generic. And this whole idea of generic, which is what we become used to, is really unconscious. So we're diving deep into the bond between conscious and unconscious, between sentient and unconscious. And this is, I want to point out to people that these are antonyms, because you're either sentient or you're unconscious. To be sentient is to be conscious, to be aware, right? To be aware of where you're at, what's going on around you, or you're unconscious. You're in like a dazed, stupid state. And we've been trained to live in dazed, stupid states by our schools and our conditioning. Because the truth is that people are easier to control when they're in a dazed, stupid state, right? They don't think. They get told, build that wall, straight line, like that. And so they're not going to put their own twist into it, make a cute little pattern with the bricks and make it look nice, you know? No, it's just a wall. And this, I think, speaks loudly about that sort of shadow. Though these houses are not being built by people, they're being built by people's shadows. Because what is the shadow? The shadow is a memory, right? The shadow is like parts of myself that I've repressed. And it doesn't act with conscientiousness. It's not creative. It doesn't act creatively. It acts out patterns. And so if you're acting out patterns from your past, then you're acting in the shadow. If you're acting consciously, then you're acting from sentience. And so that whole unconsciousness, most people, they're at work, they're like, I've got like so many hours of this to do. I've got to do this. Okay. Let me build this bloody wall. Another half an hour to my lunch break. Let me just keep doing this wall. Okay, that wall's done. Okay, lunch break, nice. And then, okay, next shift, like da-da-da-da. It's the same story. It's a drudgery. And they don't enjoy what they're doing. And if you say to this guy, what did you do last month? I built walls. What do you mean? I'm a bricklayer. I built walls. Like, which wall did you build? I don't know. They're all the same. I just built walls. You know? They're not conscious of what they're doing, where they can't remember, oh, wow, I put this beautiful wall in a lady called Anne's home. And she had this lovely little mantelpiece, fire. And I thought to make the wall reflect the beauty of the mantelpiece, so that I could keep the ambiance in the room. And so I created a curvature in this wall around it to make it like really shine and none of that. There's no time for that, because you'd actually have to be paying attention to the room. You'd actually have to be paying attention to what are you trying to create. There'd have to be a goal. You'd have to be using your creative ability and your mind and be conscious and awake. And so, this is reaching into medicine. You go and see a doctor. You sit down. Same story. When this is very sad, man. When I was a child, the doctor would sit down, say, right, how are you doing? How are you feeling? Have you been drinking water? Yes. How much water do you usually drink on average every day? Has it been normal? Yeah? How have you been pooing? Oh, right. What's the texture been like? Hard, soft? So has it been easy? How many times a day on the clipboard? Then what kind of diet do you eat? Do you usually eat this? Okay. Then, so like what else? Have you been sleeping? Okay. Now he's got a baseline for you. Now he starts testing you, like beating on your knees with a little hammer. Do you remember being beaten on the knees with a hammer?
A couple times.
This was something that it was a normal doctor's appointment.
Mhm.
They actually checked your whole body, and they were looking for tells, like, oh, the nervous system here is something that needs to be looked at, or let's check your blood pressure, let's check your heart rate. So the doctor was consciously having to process data. Now they look at you and say, "Are you sick? Oh, you got a sore throat. Let's look at your throat. Yeah, it's red. Okay, there you go. Take that pill 3 times a day for 5 days. Call me after a week." And they don't have to think. They don't have to actually do an inspection of your body and try and actually figure out what's wrong, because they've got a pill that's going to fix it. And so that attitude of it's prevalent. So our doctors, we're not even seeing real doctors anymore. We're seeing shadow doctors. We got shadow teachers teaching our kids. It's quite scary when you think about it, man.
Yeah. I think COVID revealed, a lot of inconsistencies with what is real health and what we're told by medical authorities is health. I was thinking, because we were talking about buildings for a second, that I'm not sure if we understand what actual human habitation looks like, because I'm not convinced that any of these houses that we live in are actually humane domiciles built for humans. You know, like, sure, you got your kitchen, you got some sort of dining room, hallways, rooms, living room, bedroom, bathroom, basement. Everything is square and right angles. And if you know anything about cleaning a house, cleaning a room, right angle corners are the worst, because they collect dirt and dust, and probably, from what I hear, they hold energy. I remember the last time we were talking, I think we were talking about hauntings. I wonder if an egg-shaped building can hold on to, negative energy as easily as a 90-degree building. You know what I mean? So if you're an eggshell, you're in an interior of a building and it's egg-shaped, right? Smooth at the top and at the bottom, just like an egg. And you got some vents at the top. Air comes in, circulates, goes back out. And what does it sound like?
It could even be a laying down egg,
Yeah,
like on its side.
yeah, something like that.
And
Imagine what that would be like, So, and then, every time I approach a building, or I drive around a parking lot, or something like that, you gotta go like this. you approach a building, here's the sidewalk, and then you got to do this to the entryway. Sometimes they have big, big areas in the front, but at some point you're still walking like this. Totally unnatural. Humans are like water with the way we move. Easy, the what is it called? The
Ergometrics. I don't know.
no, it's the least resistance, the way of least resistance. It's like water,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Like I don't want to do this. I want to go this. I want to do this. Maybe a little bit of that, right? But the right angles is terrible. The grid, right? The grid work is okay. Extrapolate the grid work, right? It's like a mold, right? You have the natural terrain of an area, right? You want to build on it. What do? Fucking level that shit, right? Get rid of. First of all, we got to kill off all these animals. They suck. Get all these animals out of here. Got to get rid of all these trees. Those suck. And we got to build with them, right? And level all the rocks. Okay, we now got a nice even field. All right. And then we divide it. Boom, boom, boom. And then we build our houses, boom, boom, stack it up, right? All right. So we got our nice little grid work. We're ordered, we're contained, we've defeated nature. Right. and now we can make some motherfucking money. We can build some pyramids and sit at the top because we're God. Anyways, and then apply that grid work.
Absolutely.
Apply that grid work to yourself, right? The grid imprints on yourself. And it starts writing code. It starts writing code for you how to think. This is normal. This is grid work. Totally normal, right? Cannot be any other way. It can't be, the city has to look like this. It can't be some circular thing. It can't grow maybe like a mycelium network. We can't live with the terrain. We have to level and kill. Does the name Alan Savory ring any bells to you?
I don't. It's not ringing any particular bells. The name sounds familiar, but I can't quite. I can't pull anything particular.
So I'm reading his book right now. Alan Savory. He's probably like 90 years old now, and he was a African game ranger in like the 50s, in northern and southern Rhodesia back then. And I'm about halfway through his book. I was just introduced to this guy, and he's I guess he's famous for working on the problems of habitat and wildlife preservation and restoration throughout Africa, Southern Africa, I think, mostly. And the problems that he's dealing with in the book, or the problems that he dealt with, are like desertification, desertification.
Desertification.
Yeah. He's working on these problems, and for the longest time, the idea was that it was cattle ranching that was causing it. But he was seeing that it was happening in areas that weren't cattle ranches. It was like, on the game preserves or whatever. And I think he came up with solutions to revolutionize that, how to reverse the desertification. But I bring that up because I haven't gotten all the way through the book. So it's still unclear to me exactly how he helped to reverse to work on getting that reversed throughout the country. But there was clearly this entrenched idea of how something in the natural world worked that was just it was very narrow-minded and did not take nature as a whole system where everything within it is interacting with everything else, you know, and if one thing is out of whack, right, everything else follows. Everything else suffers, right? Um, and we're talking about polarity. If one pole is dissonant, you know, it'll become out of balance. Too much of this, too much of that, right? Too much shadow, too much ignorance of your shadow. You're gonna be fucked up. And you could be and the thing is though, is that it can persist for a long, long time because there's a system that you can plug into, right? You can just plug your happy ass right into that system, right? Go to school, get that fucking STEM job, buy the stupid house. You got your wife, you got your 2.5 kids, you got your two dogs that are probably miserable because you don't know how to train them. You got your truck, you take your 2 weeks of vacation, 401k, blah, 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 blah. Stack up your achievements, right? And you die, you probably die of cancer, and you're fat, and your kids hate you. That's super pessimistic. It's not always like that. Sorry, guys. um,
Sadly, though, it's not uncommon,
it's not uncommon, right?
which it should be. It should be a rarity.
Yeah.
It should be, you know, we shouldn't be at this point where so many people pass away from cancer and we go around pretending it's a disease.
No, yeah. I mean, it's like I think about it sometimes, and I'm like, why? What? Like, why does everybody die of cancer? And and um, I would ask myself, why have we not figured this cancer thing out? Obviously, the answer is because the world controllers do not want to heal cancer because the world controllers they they want us to die of cancer. It's it's a reliable mechanism for controlling the population because at their level that's a thing, right? Control the population. How do you control a population? In the game in the Alan Savory, the African bushranger, right? Uh Unfortunately, a lot of the work is taking out animals, problem animals. Okay. Uh Elephants. So the local African populace, the black indigenous people, they've got their villages, they've got their crops. Well, um, you got these roving bands of elephants that because of some other problem, it's much easier because of the desertification. It's much easier for those elephants to just raid your crops. So they eat all the crops. Locals get pissed off. They call the game ranger. Game ranger shows up, takes out an elephant. Right? Uh, there's a lot of killing. Population control. Right? It's not the movement of the population; it's the culling of the population. A moving population is still, it's still growing. it's not being maintained at a certain level. Okay. And like people say talk about that's what COVID was. You know, um the COVID, whatever it was, you know, it was like the flu. There might have been some sort of strain of something that went around. You know, um the uh the October, preceding, what is it, March? So what was that? 2019? 2019, I got really sick for like a week, like real sick. You know, like cold, flu-like symptoms. My entire body ached. It sucked. I was in Tasmania, and I spent the entire I was suffering, but I spent the entire time um basically backpacking around Tasmania. And I cured myself by just being outside in like this super fresh environment, just getting this beautiful humid air and spending time by the ocean. Um, but then 2020 came around in March, and then that's when the COVID March, I think, and that's when the COVID lockdowns started happening, right? Um, so that was notable. That's anecdotal, but I never gotten I've never been as sick then at any other point in my life, right? So something went around, and I've heard that from other people that they did get something, right? However, this fucking this vaccine, I think, took out a lot of people and gave them all sorts of nasty stuff that they died from. You know, there's all those stories about the clots and turbo cancers and stuff like that, right? And so if a lot of people are dying, that's great. That's great for the world controllers. That's population control, you know? If there's less of us, it's like, you know, it's more resources for them. Because the world to them is just like, you know, it's a giant playground. They play God with everything.
You know, I shared something recently. I don't know if you saw it. I think I shared it in my group. It might be in the group that you left, because I've got two groups. It's about
Okay.
thimerosal. Thimerosal.
Yeah.
And, you know, apparently they've taken thimerosal out of a lot of the vaccines, but most of the flu vaccines still have thimerosal in it.
Hmm.
And they recommend that people take regular flu vaccines.
Yeah.
And
Which
I
is the
think,
dumbest thing ever, because the flu's not going away. It's not, it's like I don't think people understand that, like, there are waves and shifts in the energies being released by the earth, and that I think this has something to do with it, and that we're supposed to shed and get rid of stuff, you know, throughout the year at different times. And the sickness and the flu is like part of that. You know, you build up, like you build up shit inside of you, and it gets to a certain point, and the fucking, you know, the stars align, and you're like, "Whoop, okay, now you get sick, and you burn through it, and then you're better every year. If a freaking vaccine worked for the flu, we wouldn't have it.
well, that's the point. And but what it's really about. So thimerosal is essentially, it's a mercury-based compound, right? And they'll tell you, oh well, it's not mercury, it's this, but it's mercury compound that's made up. And I think, what do they say? Let's see. Let's get to the bottom. So in a flu vaccine, you've got between 25 and 50 micrograms of thimerosal for every zero point 0.5 milliliter dose. Right. So how many milliliters? How many milliliters is adult dose of flu vaccine. You see, they're very clever how they hide it. How many milliliters is an adult dose? Oh, of course, they won't tell us. Okay, so for 3-year-olds, it's 0.5 milliliters. For 3 years old. Adults, so if you're 3 years old and you're a baby, you're getting 25 to 50 microns of thimerosal. That contains within it 12.5 to 25 micrograms of mercury, right? So, and there's multi vial doses that you get for a flu vaccine. There's like more than one shot, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're getting more than that. Now, if you Google and say, what happens if I accidentally inject mercury into my blood? It's like you better get medical attention immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it can cause organ damage. It can cause heavy toxicity, respiratory problems. A lot of the problems we see people suffering from, calling it diseases, neurological problems, Parkinson's, ME, motor neuron diseases, neurological dysfunction, psychosis, psychological problems. Like there's this wide array of consequences that you get. And we've got the population being jacked up on this stuff. And I actually saw 2 doctors speaking about it, saying how they used to inject this. And the one doctor was like, well, I injected so many 100,000 people in my career without knowing what I was doing. I didn't even know what thimerosal was. I didn't even know it was mercury in it, that it was half mercury. They didn't even tell us. We thought it was safe. And they actually show you the thimerosal in its pure form in the bottle, and you can read it. They let you read it. And the indications are this is a highly controlled, very dangerous substance.
Mm-hmm.
They can't get it on their skin because it'll poison their organs. You can have kidney failure and all sorts of problems if they get too much of it in their system. And it doesn't break down. It collects your system. It's not removed naturally.
Yeah, so I'm reading about this idea that from the late 15th century until the early 20th century, mercury was a standard treatment for syphilis. And obviously it didn't work, right? Because and I have to wonder if that idea is some sort of bastardized and financialized outcome of a big misunderstanding of alchemy, right? So you have the Enlightenment, and you got characters like Newton, right, who are alchemists. They were really working at it, right? And at some point, I don't know, some asshole was like, mercury for syphilis? All right, open up. And it just persisted because there's a social, everyone's got a bang, and everyone's getting syphilis, and they keep on telling us that the mercury works, and look how shiny it is. All right, give it to me. And now everybody's going crazy. You must need more mercury, and you're dead.
Don't you find it funny though that was when pharmacology became what it is?
Yeah.
Before then, we had our natural healers.
Yeah.
And they weren't controlled by a control board and, politically controlled and financially controlled by a group of shareholders that owned this company, that had a label to put on the bottles and basically told everybody, you can't use urine, it's disgusting, it's dirty, even though urine was typically used for just about everything, right? Urine was typically used. If you had a problem with your skin, you used urine. That was that was traditional, right? And it still is in many parts of the world. When I was a child, I was taught that when you get stung by stinging nettles, you should pee on it. And you know what? It reduces the sting. You get stung by an animal, put wee on it. You get a cut, pee on it. Like I was taught this as a child, like immediately, and it's like it's old law. It's what we knew, but we had herbs, we had proper physicians, we had proper medicine, and then some group of people decided to convince everybody that those herb doctors were like superstitious, a waste of our time.
Yeah, those
And
fucking
then
witch doctors. We gotta get rid of those. We gotta get rid of those assholes.
they needed to think of. Let me show you another one.
Yeah.
Maybe they were experimenting for how to cull the human population. And they needed to see, well, this stuff might be really toxic. Let's try it.
Yeah.
Let's get lots of people to take it and like observe them over a long period of time. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
And
definitely.
and they got lots of people to take it, and maybe it did give a short term. Okay, it killed the syphilis. Wow, yay! But
Yeah, it's
then
'cause the
like
patient's
5 years
dead.
later, you got another problem, which they then said had nothing to do with it. Oh, that was like you would know it's the mercury because you had that shot 5 years ago. You'd be fine for a few years, right? Be good for a few years. You're not gonna. It's not gonna pick up immediately.
Yeah.
But at some point, it catches up with you, and your brain starts to pack up, and suddenly Alzheimer's disease happened.
Yeah.
And now we've got like epidemics of Alzheimer's and all sorts of other things. And could that be because of genetic genetic carryover, right? Because your genes get damaged by the mercury, and then you have kids, and now they've got damaged, and all of their kids and kids and kids have all got these damaged because your great 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 grandfather took part in some mercury trial. They didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah.
And now a big chunk of the population is suffering with the damage done by that mercury from the 1600s, 1700s. Makes sense, doesn't it, if you think about it? But
I believe it does. I believe it does. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because I
Otherwise
mean,
you
just
wouldn't have
yeah.
it.
Well, I was going to mention that there might, people might have an argument that like herbal medicine is not going to work for the ailment that I have, and that I have to go to a hospital and get Western treatment, with synthetic chemicals and all that sort of stuff. And maybe there's something to that, because maybe the ailments that are around now are around because they're basically created by the system that was designed to treat them. And that the ailments, go back 1,000 years, right? And the ailments that you would get, they could be treated by the herbs in the trees and the plants, because it wasn't that bad. Like, but I think I mean, just out here in Virginia, sometimes I'll go down YouTube rabbit holes, about plants, the plants and herbs, and you're constantly surrounded by plants that are either edible or medicinal. They're all around you all the time. It just takes education, and unfortunately, there just aren't enough. There aren't enough schools. You should be able to, it should be normal and accepted that you get a scholarship to go to an herbal medicine school, to learn bioalchemy. I like the word. I like alchemy. I like thinking of there's alchemy and there's like wizardry. And wizardry is like the dark arts, right? That's NLP, financialism, deception. But then there's alchemy, which is you take real things and you transmute them into beneficial things, right? You take the divine connection and transmute that into something that's for the betterment of yourself, your family, and your culture. What do you think?
Yeah, when you say wizardry is the dark art, I think this is an idea that's been propagated. Okay, so here's what I think. I mean, if you look at the etymology of the word wizard,
Yeah.
it comes from the word wise.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
And so it's like it's somebody that has wisdom. And so an alchemist is a wizard. And then you've got sorcery.
Sorcery.
Now the sorcery is related to the sources, right? Beings came down from sources and taught us sorcery.
Yeah.
Now sorcery is to do with like invoking beings,
Okay.
working with demons, for example, and making pacts with non-physical beings that will help you and do your bidding. Where wizardry is everything from mixing herbs for medicine
Okay.
to neurolinguistic programming to understanding psychosomatic conditions and how to work with those. So wizardry is like a very broad spectrum term, but you'll find that what's happened is sorcery has been pushed, right, under the guise of magic. And many of these ideas of like, okay, so basically the elites, they eat organic vegan food. It must be poisonous because the elites eat it, right? I'm just going with the logic. They use that. It must be bad. They use organic cotton. It must be toxic, right? They want to live in areas where there's quiet and peace. The peace and the quiet must be harming us. They use wizardry. Wizardry must be evil, right?
Yeah.
Like just because an evil bunch of people use something doesn't mean that what they use is bad. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But I think that it's been pushed. Like for example, you see all of this propaganda about Freemasonry, and if you look at the roots of what Freemasonry was, it was actually a group of people that were challenging the monarchs. And the monarchs invented the feudal system. And the Freemasons then ended up being ousted and they became the pirates. They were demonized as pirates. So who were the pirates? They were the people that would basically take from the kings and queens. But the one thing about the pirates is they had equality. It didn't matter who you were, right? Everybody was equal. So they had a different philosophy, the pirates. And when you look at the idea of Freemasonry, they came from like the idea of charity comes from Freemasonry as organized charity. That's where it started. So, for example, if like a parent, if there was a child without parents, they would look after the children.
Mm-hmm.
There was a woman whose husband wasn't around, they would make sure that she had access to food and shelter. That was sort of a Masonic thing. They built all the monasteries, right? If you look at it, they built the cathedrals, houses of healing. I think like so much of our history has been taken from us and lied to us. The ones who designed these cathedrals using the principles of sacred geometry, where the energy and the sound of the organ would actually heal your physical body and your mind, that was Masonic knowledge. If these guys were so out to get you and they were all so evil, why would they have built these beautiful healing places? But who stole those healing places and turned it into what it is today, right? And I'm not saying that the Masons weren't infiltrated by a dark group of sorcerers. I think they definitely were, in the same way that the dark group of sorcerers infiltrated government and the financial system.
Yeah, there was a war. There was a war that was fought and won by the dark side, and we are living through those consequences right now. That's 100% true. Because why would there not be cathedrals in every single city for everybody to go to receive healing daily, weekly, whenever you need? You know what I mean? Yeah, I mean, yeah, you could go on forever about these sorts of things for sure. But yeah, to speak to your thing about history, I mean, in the buildings, I've mentioned this guy before, John Levi. I think that, and that's his name. That's the name of his YouTube channel. You just go to John Levi, and you just go search through his catalog of videos, and he's really big on talking about the buildings in America from the 18th century, basically, and before that, like all the like insane asylums, you know, they in hospitals and in schools, and supposedly that's what these things were. And you look at old photographs of them, and there are these palatial, giant, stone built castles that were apparently, you know, built by Masons, you know, in like a year, you know, at a time when it was just like, you know, horses and buggies, right? um and his hypothesis, his theory is that there was a vast, like, when Lewis and Clark, you know, were around doing their expedition, there was already a vast civilization here in America, you know, with these giant buildings. And their expedition was probably just like some sort of they were just ambassadors. But anyways, you control the if you control the history, you know, you control the history, you control the education, you're much more controllable, right? You as a individual, and people in general are much more controllable. And you're disconnected from who you were, who you are, and what your potential as a human being actually is. We have much more potential in all domains of life, I think, than we could possibly know at this time.
I think that's very true, and I think that's by design. That's the education system,
right? Because
because
the war that was fought and won, those forces, it's oppression. It's global oppression. It's suppression of the human spirit, right? You're talking about the urine, and we've covered this. We cover this in you know, in the video series that we did. about you being able to heal yourself with urine. You being able to heal yourself, and how remarkable is that that your own body recirculated has healing properties, right? That's fucking mind blowing. You never hear about that.
Yeah, and like getting back to the whole story with like the history, how much of it's been doctored, like, um, and that's really interesting. Like when we speak about cathedrals, right? Just back to that, and other things related to it. The free energy that we see. There seems a lot of evidence that there was free energy being siphoned from the earth grid by these buildings that could be utilized,
Yeah.
and that the organs, these incredible organs and bells
Yeah, the
that were
bells.
at these cathedrals were used to generate vibrational fields that would generate positive energy for our health.
Yeah.
So we didn't need pharmaceuticals. We didn't need doctors. We didn't have a lack of technology. We had superior forms of technology in the past,
Yes.
where instead of going to a doctor, you just had a bell that would be rung in particular patterns with an organ that would be played. And the bell should be enough to sustain you. And if you felt sick, you went to the building where the organ was played and you sat and you had a sound bath, and the sound bath was very particular notes and pitch harmonic keys that would retune your organs vibrationally. Literally retune them like you tune a guitar
Yeah.
using sound.
Yeah.
And they've
Yeah.
taken this from us.
The bell, okay, these bells, you look up all these bells that were taken away from us, and they were, melted down and turned into cannonballs or something like that, right? Like how fucking evil and pathetic is that, right? Um, but right, so the human body is so big, and then you got this bell, right? Massive, enormous, uh, undeniable, right? Made out of pure metal, and tuned right to a very specific frequency and range of sound, right? And you whack that thing, and it sends out that vibration, right? And it's like you're not stopping that vibration. You're just a little human, and it's that vibration is just flowing through you, right? Hitting every single cell, mitochondria, right? Nucleus, atom of your body, and whatever's wrong with you, in like your body, it has to align. It's gonna align. It can't do anything else, right? And whatever's wrong with you, whatever dissonance is wrong with you, it's gonna get manipulated back into shape, right? And it probably takes different um different sessions, right, for you to finally get it, right? For your body and your mind to finally get it, and rewire itself, right? I absolutely believe in those things, right? No, nobody I know, I don't know, nobody I know has stood next to a bell like that, because not a lot of them exist, right? I church bells, that's probably why they were rung. You heard a church bell, right? And you were like, and that probably felt amazing, right? That felt amazing. I was like, I gotta go follow that. I gotta go where that is, right? To where the singing and the cheer, or the cheerfulness is, in this in the there's the social context, right? And then there's the divine thread, right? The priest or the shaman bringing down the message, spreading it out to the people, right? And then there was a feast afterwards, right? With all the natural elements being brought together and consumed. Yeah, and it's just like now it's like it's the things that we do now. It's just this like play acting, lip service. Uh, it's just this surface level, paper thin, and the paper thin can just get torn by COVID, right? COVID. All the priests are like, take your vaccination, put your mask on, and don't come to church.
And there's thimerosal in it.
And there's thimerosal in it. Like, what the hell? What the heck is going? What the heck is going on? And it's because people don't know any better.
We'll save you.
They haven't experienced the real connection or the real healing. They haven't stood next to the bell. If any of these tech billionaires had any balls whatsoever, they would be reinventing, or not reinventing. They would be bringing back this technology. They would be using their billions of dollars, to melt down cannons and build it
If they
back
had
into
any
the bells.
bells at all.
Yeah,
if these tech millionaires had any bells at all.
right, exactly. They'd be bringing these bells
When the
to
real man walks, you can hear the bells ringing. Clang, clang.
Yeah, that's an Indian thing. Yeah, they'd be bringing these bells to Burning Man or whatever the hell they do, and instead of taking acid, they would be taking bells, standing inside the bell.
I actually found a bell-shaped room. It was made out of particular stone, small little one, where I healed myself when I had yellow jaundice. And I was really sick. I turned yellow. And I went and sat in there and I chanted mantra. And I had like the most incredible experience. The room is shaped like a little bell. And it's a tiny little place that you sit in, and it's like you're sitting inside a bell. And it's designed to chant. And when you chant, you start chanting, you notice that the walls start vibrating. And so the particular kind of a quartz rock that they've used to build these little structures. And as you're chanting in this little thing, it's vibrating, and the vibrations of the wall start running through your body. And I sat in there and I chanted for about 2 or 3 hours. And I came back, and the people were looking at me with big eyes and saying, wow, you look much better. The next day, the yellow started to disappear. Yeah. Within 2 days, I was completely healthy. Right? Yellow jaundice, less than 72 hours, no trace of it left, no medication. When the doctor saw me, he couldn't believe me. He couldn't believe his eyes. Because they'd called a doctor to see me in the village. There was a doctor coming to the village. When the doctor got there, he looked at me and said, when did you haven't got jaundice? I said, no, the yellow went away. He said, when did you first turn yellow? I said, first turned yellow on Wednesday. He was, yeah, but it's Friday today. This is not possible. Like this yellow jaundice, minimum 3 weeks, minimum 14, 15 days, your skin and your eyes will yellow. The yellow cannot have gone. And everybody was saying to him, no, miracle, Shiva Shakti. He went in that special little temple and he sat there chanting, and he came out and he was healed. I'm telling you, there's a lot more to the sound vibrations if we learn to use them. And those were just chanting Sanskrit mantra.
Yeah.
So
what's happening? So what do we got here? We have a physical place made out of physical material of the earth, right? It's a certain type of material, a certain type of quartz in a certain geometric fashion, right? Fashioned by people who had the knowledge. They learned this, they created the shape. And then you intuitively, because you're tuned in, you're aware, you go to this place, you sit, and you use your voice to create certain vibrations, which are then received by the granite and reciprocated back to you. And you concentrate energies in this spot, right? These energies are concentrated there, and they swirl around, and they do the job that you intended them for, that you had intent, and it worked.
Well, this is the relationship between vibration and rhythm that we've forgotten. And I think like it's such a big part. I mean, okay, when we look at the hermetics of it, so I couldn't share images, but that was the Malamute part. Whew. Okay. Sure. If you see me, if you hear a thud and I fall off my chair, it's because there's a Malamute farting in the room. It's like it's a dog fart. What can you do? This is what dogs do. They eat foods that are like, meaty. So yeah, let me get onto this thing and look at this. So here I've got a thing. I hope you guys can all see the screen. Tell me you can see it. Yep, you can see it. Good. I just want to be sure that you could see it. So let me go here. So here we've got this like structure here, and we can see, right, so we've got vibration. That's the third principle of Hermes, the Hermetic principle of vibration. And then we got the fifth principle, the principle of rhythm. And that the principle of rhythm and the principle of vibration dance around polarity. So vibration produces the polarity, and because of the enactment of polarity, rhythm is a result that tunes vibration. So rhythm and vibration are constantly being tuned, and polarity is the principle of tuning. So, for example, polarity then would represent if we look at it, for example, let's look at a guitar string, right? As an example. So you look at a guitar string and you think of like this two poles, A and B, right? And it's pulled tight. And so there's a particular pressure gradient between the first and the second pole. And then you shift that polarity, right? By twanging the string, forcing the polarity to repolarize. And each time that polarity repolarizes, it sends out a ping. And all those little pings together is vibration, is sound. Right? So that's how sound is made. That's what sound is. Drum, you have the skin that is pulled over, and one side is the skin, the other side is the skin. There's a polarity between the center of the skin and the outside of the skin, right? Which is radiating outwards. You hit that point and it creates a bending of that polarity, which means it then has to repolarize, and that's a thud. And each repolarization produces a series of repolarizations because it vibrates now. So the drum skin then goes in, out, really fast. And that's woo. And it's the same for guitar strings. So when we look at what polarity is the reason why vibration can be tuned by rhythm, right? And the rhythm of those particular vibrations we will hear as a particular pitch, right? Particular note. Because the frequency is XYZ, we hear it as an A. Increase the frequency, we hear it as a B or a C up the scale. Decrease that, we'll hear it as an E lower down the scale, for example. And color works on the same principle. So when we look at the fundamentals of just exactly how important polarity is, and so what polarity represents in the human consciousness, and I've put a bit of time into this, what I think is a pretty little graph, where you see that the polarity and the imagination. So what is polarity? Polarity is potential. And what is the imagination? It's the potential of the human consciousness to create. And polarities is the potential to shift the vibration and the rhythm. And the shifting between vibration and rhythm is what creates this resonance. And the resonance, then we experience it as cause and effect, right? Because it depends on how much you pluck that guitar string, the string will vibrate left, right, then it will vibrate left, then right, then left, then right, until it comes back to its point of rest in the center. So that cause and effect is how far it goes away from its origin. And then when it goes so far to the right, that cause will produce an effect of it going so far to the left. And that will produce an effect of it going so far to the right. And each time it loses a bit of energy, right, until it comes back to its point of rest. And the point of rest is the central column. And so these two extreme polarity, elements of polarity, can then be experienced as gender, because this then reconstitutes physically to form physical aspects of this high pitch, low pitch. And so it's interesting. We see the imagination. We can see rhythm as the will that pitches and tunes memory. So the universe is a structure of memory. It's water, right? But that memory and water is really structured by the fire, by the will. And so the structuring of that produces patterns of vibration, particular patterns based upon the rhythm. And these are all governed by the principle of polarity. So we see polarity sits like in a very important place. And we can also see, it's quite interesting, that beneath polarity there are 3, and above polarity there are 3, right? And so we can see vibration and rhythm have a relationship. They are like octaves of each other. We can see cause and effect and correspondence have a relationship, reflections of each other. We can see the principle of gender and the principle of mentalism have a relationship where gender is coming together of masculine and feminine to form a singular, and that singular becomes the subtotality of two becoming one. And mentalism, well, mentalism is where one becomes two in order to become correspondence. So we see that 3 below and 3 above, it's not just by accident that we have this system with polarity sitting in the middle. And so when we consider like the true heart of what polarity represents, probably a good place to look at it. Well, number 2, that polarity is essentially bound by number 2. It's also re-envisioned by number 4, carried by number 6, and perfected by number 8. So 2, 4, 6, 8, right? And when we add them up, 8 plus 6 is 14, right? And 14 plus 4 is 18. And 18 plus 2 is 20. See? So we end up back in that cycle of number 2 crossing the event horizon where there's no number, going up into its upscale of itself when we consider all 4 aspects of polarity, where 3 is the system of polarity that binds 8 and 4, the 2 poles of 3, 6. And 4 is a system of polarity that binds the fundamental polarity with the 6, which is the harmonic polarity. And so we can see it's quite interesting. All of these elements of polarity are rather quite sort of important, because notice how the 8 becomes 1, right? And that's quite interesting, right? That's the Saturn, the perfected polarity. It then becomes 1 in its transition through action of number 9. So when we look at like what polarity really represents on like a metaphysical and occult level, we've got to sort of like take into account that we're not dealing with a concept. We're dealing with a visceral experience. And here we see with the Saturn square, once again, principle of polarity is governing this whole story. We've got the 1, 2, and the 3, and it's keeping the 7, 8, and the 9 in check. And it's keeping it in check by the 4 of knowledge and the 6 of harmony, producing the poles that dance around number 5. And number 5, being the pentagon and the pentagram, is really the key to phi, the golden ratio, which is why you can see phi so beautifully represented if you look at the mathematics of a pentagram. It's why you have 72 degrees and 108 degrees, like these 2 profound mystical numbers, one from mysticism, 108, and one from the occult, 72. But together they become 180. And when we look at that 180, that's quite interesting, because that's half of 360. And there used to be 360 days in a year before the huge catastrophes that happened, which were documented in ancient Egypt, right? When they added on the extra days. This actually quite well documented. So a lot of our old maps and calendars speak about 360. So it's quite interesting when we start to sort of look at how this whole system works you know, and just how fundamental this principle of polarity is. Like, yeah, we've got the Saturn square. This also represents our outer persona and our unconscious repressed persona, and how the centripetal elements and the centrifugal elements of our persona, which is radiating outwards and radiating inwards, are bound by this fundamental polarity. So if you want to think of this as yang yin, you can see the Tao in the center, and around the Tao is dancing one polarity, and that one polarity is expressed as two polarities. So can you see how this is a yin yang sign? I don't know if it's quite easy to see, but imagine a yang yin. So you have the fundamental yang and yin, the 6 and the 4, making a polarity with 5 in the center. But then you have within the yang a yin yang, and within the yin a yang yin. And so you have those two polarities within each of the private things that produces this particular polarity here. So it's just really interesting when we look at how this whole system, how it works. And people don't really realize that, you know, it's closer to it than what it is away from it. And we can see here when we look at the lunar potential, the lunar energy, right? So we've got the lunar here, and we've got the north node, the 2 and the 4. And the north node is representing moving forwards, right? Moving forwards towards generating potential, the future. And number 4 is about being crystallized, knowledge, being stuck. Number 6 is about the harmony of interaction. So you've got the harmony of interaction on a pole with things being stuck and crystallized with the absolute potential. So total potential here, 2, total harmony between the different relationships of things, 6, and sitting in the center here, 4, stagnancy. But if we look at the harmony as the center, number 6, we see on the one side total stagnancy, and on the other side, number 8, we see total dynamism. So 8 is a dynamo. 8 produces the dynamic effects of moving energy towards its course or its purpose. Has a lot to do with purpose. So when we look at like how these principles sort of relate to, you know, fairly spiritual elements, we can see why they are reflected on the physical plane. As above, so below. That is the fundamental law of polarity. So we can see that within our consciousness, within the metaphysics of our brain. Now, this is wizardry. This is does that make sense? Understanding these truths is wizardry, and if you know this, you can then build that little thing according to those principles by taking these dynamic principles, plotting them mathematically, and using that math to build a structure, and then looking at the periodic table to find the right elements based upon the same knowledge that's going to reflect these principles, and then being able to capture the polarizing effects of vibration and control it with rhythm. And that's exactly what the cathedrals were. So, you know, when we think about it, it's a very interesting potential that's been taken from us. But what do we have now? We've got grinding music, right? Isn't that what the kids are listening to? Is that right? Should we call
I have
it
no idea
grinding
what the
music?
kids are listening to be honest with you.
It's called grinding music. It's like, it's all about grinding, you know? Like, it's about dancing with your pelvis in a way to signify that you're going to have sex with someone.
Maybe, yeah, I don't know. I know that demographically, there's a lot of I don't know. The music thing. I mean, there was a moment in time, I think, that sort of stuff proliferated. God, it started a lot. I mean, sex and music, long time ago, but it was brought into the public consciousness, in something, in things as basic as commercials. But I don't know what I don't know what the kids are listening to. The kids are listening to right now. It's hard to say because my kids are teeny weeny and they listen to what I want them to listen to.
Well,
Hey, real quick, I gotta wrap up and get moving. But I just want to say, uh, all I wish is, you know, there should be a Bush Whisper temple building series where you kind of explain what you were just talking about and match up those principles with actual stone and build up a schematic on how to build the perfect temple for healing. Because the point I want to make here is that, like, even though that war that I mentioned earlier was fought and won by the dark side, we still live here on Earth. Like all this stuff to to heal and to prosper is still here. And we're still human beings. And uh the knowledge isn't lost. I think it's just occluded, you know. And guys like you are very valuable, and your voice, and your knowledge needs to be put out there. Um, so, uh, so there's so what I guess what I'm saying, there is hope, you know, there is hope and there is choice. It just takes effort and work, and effort, work, suffering, time to do anything right. But I gotta get going, man. I hear the family moving around, so I gotta get breakfast going and stuff like that.
well, big love, dear brother. And by the way, they've already done it. The architecture. It's called the
Mhm.
geodesic dome.
Yeah,
And
nice.
it's based upon the number 5 in the middle,
Mm.
pentagram,
Yeah,
pentagon,
yeah.
with hexagrams around it.
Mhm.
So you pentagon, 5 hexagons, and each hexagon points back at a pentagon. And when
Mm.
you make that mathematic operate, fit them together, you end up with a geodesic dome. And that shape maximizes cymatic vibrational fields and focuses in back towards the center.
Nice. Now,
So
does
I
it have
think
to?
they are using that mathematics when they're building.
Yeah, yeah. Cool, man. Well, I have to log off, so I appreciate
Big
talking to
love,
you.
brother. Enjoy. I hope she enjoys her dance class. Is she going for a dance class today?
Yeah, dance classes today.
Nice,
She loves
nice.
it.
Well, big love to her. Big love to you and to your partner. I hope you guys are all well. I hope you guys are enjoying that spring. Sending you big love, and it's been an honor keeping you here and having your lovely energy. Om Namah Shivaya, brother. Big love.
Same to you, man. Talk to you later.
Blessed be, man. Bless. So yeah, it's like it's very interesting because like this idea that we've got of the way in which polarity has been used to control us. We've been polarized. And something interesting that was mentioned by Jeremy earlier was this heavy polarizing opinion of like, that's good and that's bad. That's good and that's evil, which is by design a necessary polarity, right? Because some things are poisonous, you shouldn't eat them, and some things are healthy, you should eat them, right? Cow is good. Oh, by the way, those dog lovers out there, I was talking to my girlfriend last night, and I decided to test myself and crush one of my paradigms, and I want to crush that paradigm for you. I went and did the mathematics and the research to get the receipts and the facts. So I was always, Ori, leave the bunnies alone. The bunnies don't want to play with you. You're a massive, gigantic Malamute dog. They're tiny little bunnies. We've all been taught that chocolate is bad for dogs, right? What do you guys in the chat? Is that something that you've always believed? That it's poisonous for dogs? Go on. I want to hear your guys' opinions. What do you guys think? How poisonous is chocolate for dogs? Is it poisonous? Or do you think it's a lie? It blew my mind when I did the research. So what happened was I put a cup of cacao. Speaking of cacao, my cacao is finished. So we mustn't give dogs chocolate. We mustn't give them cacao. Well, let me tell you the facts about cacao, right? My Malamute weighs probably closer to 60 kilos, 50, 60 kilos, whatever. He's lost a little bit of weight as he gets a bit older. I'm very careful not to let him put on too much weight because, as you know, Alaskan Malamutes, they suffer from dysplasia in their hips. And when they leave this world, it will probably be because they can't get up and walk around. They're just laying around and they can't move, and they get muscular entropy, and their lives become a problem, and their bowels stop working properly because they're not moving and walking around, and then they end up with like lots of suffering. And so that's normally when people put them down because, well, it's like you don't want to watch your animal suffer. So I'm very careful with Ori to make sure that his weight is maintained at like an optimal balance. But I got up and went out of the room, and I came back, and Indigo, I think it was Indigo, because she was looking very, very nervous at me when she came in. Her nose, or Ori's nose, had gone to sniff the cup of cocoa to see what's there and bumped it over on my little coffee table. And there wasn't a full cup of cocoa on the coffee table. I reckon somebody came and licked it off. I was like, and naturally my impulse to say to my girlfriend was like, holy crap, my dogs drank my cup of cocoa. Oh no, it's poisonous for them. I hope they're going to be okay. So I wiped what was left up on my table because it was a bit messy, but like basically the cup. No, real cocoa. Tom Roo, come on, you know me better than that. I take natural cacao and I mix it with raw cashew nut milk that I make here in my own home using nothing but well water that's been filtered and raw cashew nuts that's been washed. Nothing else. And then I add my raw cacao to hot water and my homemade raw cashew nut milk, and that's what I drink. No sugar, nothing. That's how I roll. Joshua, I'm busy on the live. Go away. I'm gonna count to 3. 1, 2, 3. So I had a little boy trying to break into my. I have to lock myself in here to lock myself away, so I don't have people come in here and try and talk. And it's nicer without water. Yeah, but then I try not to take in too much. I mean, the milk that I use is really good, but I like it a bit warm, and I don't like to cook my cashew because it's raw cashew nut milk. I want to get all the goodness. But it's I'm used to it. My boy, you can't give my son a sweet cacao. It doesn't work for him. He needs a bitter cacao made by dad with the raw cashew nut milk. That's how he rolls. So anyway, my dogs had this cacao, and I immediately went onto the internet and I was like, I wonder how much it had. She must have had like a half a cup or 2/3 of a cup. Whoever got to that cup basically downed that cup of cocoa. Who was it? Because they knocked the cup over and drank it while it was flooding the table. But obviously, it's like a dog's like, they got most of it. Because like, where's the rest of the fluids gone? Like, it's vanished. Like, fluids don't just vanish. It was hot, it was warm, it wasn't there for a long time. It was like minutes ago. So I went and looked it up, and there were 2 ingredients in the cacao. There's a very small amount of caffeine, and there's another ingredient. What is it called? What's the toxic ingredient in chocolate that's poisonous for dogs? I forget the name of the poisonous to dogs. There we go. And it's called theobromine. It's called theobromine, right? So I was like, holy crap. So then I started looking into it. So at which point does theobromine become toxic for animals? And it was like, well, with such a concentration per kilogram, it's going to have mild effects. On such a concentration per kilogram, it's going to have massive effects. And at such a concentration per kilogram, it can be fatal. I was like, holy crap. So I did the math from how much there is in cacao, how much cacao was in a cup, how much would my dog have to drink? So I did the math, and I think it came out to my Malamute would have to drink 38 liters. Let me say that again. My Malamute would have to drink 38 liters of cacao, and I make it strong. I'd put a massive heaped teaspoon of cacao powder into there. I don't do it small. I put like a good 7 grams in. So yeah, my Malamute would have to drink 38 liters of cacao, the way I make it, to be fatal. And for it to have a very bad effect, which is like really not health threatening, they would have to drink, I think, 29 liters for them to have a very mild effect of the cacao. Very mild effect. They would have to drink something like 15 liters. Right? So in the event that my Malamute comes across, right, 60 cups of cacao, hot chocolate, and drinks all 60 cups, and this is strong the way I make it. It's not like the chocolate that you buy in the shop. It's got a bit of cacao in it. It's like I make it strong. It's dark. They would have to drink 60 cups for it to have any significant effects on them at all, right? 30 cups of cacao, and in a single sitting, 30 cups of cacao would be not good for your dog, but safe. If your dog drinks 10 cups, if you take a massive bucket and put 10 cups of cacao in the bucket and give it to your dog, it's not poisonous. It's not good for them. If you give them 5 cups of cacao at once, it's unhealthy. If you give your dog 1 cup of cacao, strong cacao, it's not going to affect them at all. In fact, when you look at humans, that dosage of cacao is toxic for humans too. You try and drink 38 liters of cacao in a morning and see what it does to you. You'd have to drink like more than 1 kilogram of cacao powder. So, basically, there is nothing toxic in cacao for dogs. It's not poisonous for dogs. Bought chocolate is bad gas. But let me tell you about cacao. 1 heaped teaspoon of cacao powder has as many antioxidants in it as a half a cup of blueberries. It's one of the most antioxidant foods that you can take into your body. And especially when it's raw. The processing removes a significant amount of the antioxidants depending on how the processing has been done. And you can tell by the color of the cacao how processed the cacao is. The darker the cacao is, the more it's being processed. But even a highly processed cacao still has about 20%, 15 to 20% of all the antioxidants in it, which still makes it effectively much more antioxidant than anything else in your kitchen. If it's low processed cacao, and it's still got a good color, and it doesn't have such a strong cacao taste when it's low processed. People would think it's not such good cacao, but it is. If you have raw cacao, it's really powerful antioxidants. If you drink 3 cups of cacao per day and you make it strong, the way I drink it, if it's raw cacao, you will be getting, I think it's 12,000 units of the antioxidant. What are those antioxidant units called? What are antioxidant units called? They're called OREC units. So if you have 3 strong cups of cacao every day, you're taking in about 10 to 12,000 OREC units of antioxidant. That's going to cleanse your organs. That's going to clean your vascular system. That's going to cleanse cleans it on a cellular level, and it just removes all of the carcinogens, all of the toxins from all of the food that we eat. So cacao is it's one of the most potent medicines that there is. But I think that when you eat it with sugar, here's where the key is. When you eat it with sugar, the sugar crystals affect those OREC units, and I think they make them inert. I don't know how, I'm not sure. But from what I've heard is when you take the cacao with sugar and dairy, it affects it. So you want to have your cacao without sugar and without dairy. You want to have it bitter, pure bitter cacao. Cacao you get heavy metals in trace element form, which you need. But then you get heavy metals in the forms that we get them and the doses that we get them in other things. So the cacao being such a potent antioxidant, it actually removes heavy metals from the body. Now let's see if I can find information. Raw cacao removes heavy metals from body. I know that it has huge, powerful. It doesn't specifically remove or chelate, but it's got a high polyphenol content, and so this actually reduces the absorption of the heavy metals during digestion. While rich in antioxidants, often contain cadmium and lead, making it a source. However, the absorption of those heavy metals are inhibited by the presence of the cacao. So even though it's got the heavy metals in it, it prevents you from absorbing it into your system. And then it causes your system to become antioxidant cleansed. And when you cleanse your system, your immune system gets boosted. And the boost of your immune system actually starts it naturally removing all of the substances in your system. But to actually chelate the heavy metals, you want to take, what do you call that stuff you put on your plants? You need to take a chelating agent. And Shilajit is probably the safest, best chelation agent to use to remove heavy metals from your body. Because when you eat Shilajit, it's a natural humic acid that's found in the Himalayas in like, crystallized deposits. And that Shilajit then chelates, it goes into the body and it chelates the heavy metals. It breaks it down to the point that your body can remove it. And at that point, if you're having the chelation, chelated heavy metals can be removed by the antioxidants in cacao. So it's very interesting. You don't like the Shilajit. You know what it tastes like? It tastes a lot like molasses. I don't know if you noticed that. It's got a bit of a blackstrap molasses taste to it, which is quite interesting. And I don't buy sugar, but I bought sugar for the first time in years. No, I lie. I did buy sugar when I had an animal that I fed sugar that makes tea and sugar. I forget. It's a creature. You feed it and you drink what it produces. You drink its secretions, enzyme secretions. For some reason I can't think of the name of it, but I actually bought sugar, and what I bought was what's called good in India, or it's called jaggery. It's called jaggery or good. And jaggery is when they take the sugar cane and they put them through these machines and they crush. The machine's got like running wheels that crushes the sugar cane, and it collects the juice out of the sugar cane, and that juice is then put into vats and crystallized. And as that starts to crystallize, it forms like a kind of a goo, right? And that goo, they allow it to evaporate, put it in a warm place, and it evaporates the water off, becomes a goo, and the goo starts to crystallize a bit. It's like a kind of a soft, dense, that's natural, unrefined sugarcane sugar. And it doesn't taste sweet like sugar that you know. It's more like it's molasses, basically. It's got all the black strap and all the molasses in it. And I bought that for the first time because I want to make a pecan nut pie with my girlfriend this weekend. That's goal. We want to make a pecan nut pie with phyllo pastry. So I bought that. It's the closest I've got to buying sugar, but it's totally unrefined. It's totally natural. And I'm going to use that in the phyllo pastry pie because you shouldn't cook raw honey. If you cook raw honey, it becomes toxic. You shouldn't bake it or do anything with it. So anyway, that's the closest I get to buying sugar. But getting back to like the conversation on the table, the esoteric pendulums of being and creation. So we sort of looked at the polarity element for a long time. But speaking of pendulums, we should be looking at cause and effect. I think the cause and effect element is something that's very profound. And we don't realize how the choices that we make today are the effects of causes honey rocks. I love raw honey, guys. Also, once again, unrefined raw honey. It's the only honey I buy, or I don't buy honey. I don't know what they sell in the shops, but I can tell you now, guys, they're feeding the bees sugar water and all sorts of rubbish. Because if you buy store honey and you eat it, it's got no honey taste to it. But if you get the raw, unrefined stuff from the natural beehives down the road, then it's got like a rich, like a molasses kind of not molasses, but it's got its own taste in it. So yeah, honey's it's definitely, they should call it yummy. But looking at the this cause and effect, The thoughts that we thought yesterday become the effects of the words that we say today, which cause the actions of tomorrow. I want you to think about this. But the thoughts that we thought yesterday that are the cause of the words that we speak today, that become the effects of the actions of tomorrow, started from a cause of a feeling, a feeling. And the feeling, well, it didn't start with the feeling, but the feeling was the cause of an effect. And the effect of the feeling was a passion, the passing of ions. And the effect of that passion, passing of ions, became the cause of a feeling, which when we go to the big love, dear Howard, namaste, brother, how are you doing? I hope you're good. When we go back to that root and we see, well, it's the emotion became the cause of the effect, which was a feeling that became the cause of a passion, which effect was a thought that became the cause of a effect that was a word that became the cause of an effect that was an action. So the emotions that we experience will become feelings, and those feelings will become thoughts, and those thoughts will become words, and those words will become actions. Whether the words are spoken or whether the words are sub-vocalized, immaterial, because even if you sub-vocalize words, they are resonating in your inner ear. They are vibrating into the universe in your inner ear. So you can see this process of cause and effect, and the emotions, which is the effect of the cause. Let's break that down, ladies and gentlemen. Let's do this. Let's go there and say image of correspondences. So we can bring up the correspondences. Whoa, they hid it away from me, baby. I'm in the, come on, baby. Correspondences. So we should see that popping up any second now. There we go. So there we can get an idea of the correspondences. And I just want to make sure that I've also got the Saturn, because they're all part of the same story, mates. It's the same blooming story. The whole thing is just the same thing. So sorry I'm so late with this, but yeah, so if we look at this picture and we get a good look at it, we can see, you know, the emotion, right, is related to a memory. The feeling is related to an imagination. The passion is related to the will that becomes a desire. The desire is related to the sensation that manifests sensation. So if you desire food, it will manifest the sensation of hunger. If you focus your will on trying to have sex with women, it will focus on it will create a desire for sex. If you put your imagination on yeah, probably sex is a good place to start. If you imagine having sex, it will charge your will to want to have sex. You'll become focused on that, which will then feed the desire, which will then produce a sensation of sexual arousal. And memory what you choose to remember. So if I think about like the great escapades I've had with my girlfriend, I start remembering like, oh, that was pretty special. That was nice. Then that will get my imagination working. And that'll get my will, like, you know what? That's really what I want to do. That's what I want to do. And when I know what I want to do, then my desires will be like, ooh, I really, yummy, yummy. And then that desire will end up in a sensation of me feeling very physically aroused. And I'll have to like pick up the phone and go, where are you? Like, where are you right now? You know? So you can see how there's this knock-on effect. In the way that these hermetic principles become. And here's an interesting thing is when we think of what is memory is a reflection of correspondence. So when we draw a correspondence, let me give you an example. Let's say you are walking on the beach and you're starting to look at like the waves, how the waves are breaking. That could make a correspondence of how I surfing on the waves, which would then bring to mind a memory of, wow, yeah, surfing on that's what it felt like to be on the wave and to cruise in the big wave and the exhilaration, the adrenaline and all of that. And that would then get my imagination flowing. Well, look at that wave. I could surf that wave right now. It's an exciting wave. And did somebody join me? Yo, Toby One Shinobi. Bum shiver, dear brother. How you doing? We got Toby One Shinobi in the house. I hope you are good. Speak of correspondence and memory, and here he comes, jumping out of the woodwork, as it were. You all know Toby One Kenobi. He is our shinobi, and he plays with words a lot, breaks them down, builds them up, dismantles them, and puts them back together to get a sense of their inner treasure.
Good.
Welcome, dear brother Toby. How are you doing?
Yeah, really good, man. Just thought I'd pop on for a short while, just like 5-10 minutes or so, because I'm at work. But yeah, man, doing really well. I've been listening to yours and Jeremy's conversation. Really enjoying it. I wanted to jump in when you were talking about cause and effect, because I was listening to another podcast this morning where somebody was mentioning cause and effect, and I couldn't help but think the cause is the course, is the course of like the movement. I'm just thinking of water, like a stream is the course, and then the effects is like the facts, which is when something's like solid, which you can observe. So like the cause is the course, which is the formless, I guess, which is coming through the morph into the form, into matter, and then the effect is what we see of I guess it's like a fact of something which it is what it is, opposed to the course in which it's taken to get to that place. And people seem to focus more on the effects or the facts rather than the course, rather than where we've come from, where we're going, where that thread has come from, where the thread is going. They just focus on like, oh, everything is like this. Why is it like this? They don't really focus on the course of how things have come to be, if that makes sense. So yeah, I just find it interesting. So I couldn't help but think of that earlier, like the cause is the course and the way in which something is travelled, and then the effects is like the fact of the matter of something which we can observe. And people are quite hung up in just what we can observe rather than tapping into of how things have come to be, like the course in which they've taken and the course in which we're going now, I guess.
Yeah, brother. Lovely. Absolutely. You know, um, and you know, the cause and the effects as well. Like you say, the course of the river. That's probably a good way to put it. And the river course goes to the ocean, and the ocean is supposedly like the source of life, right? Where all living stuff comes from, right? So cause and effect is very much to do with creating life. So like the most profound form of cause and effect that we can consider is like, I put that inside her and I caused the effect of her to be pregnant. And now she's carrying the effects of a cause, which was a seed that was planted, and the planted seed now became became a child. So it's very heavily related to the sacral plexus. You can get a pretty good idea here. Desire. So cause and effect lives in desire, but is a product of will. Rhythm lives in the will, but is a product of polarity. Polarity lives in imagination, but is a product of vibration. Vibration lives in the memory, but is a product of correspondence. Correspondence lives through intuition, but is a product of mentalism. Mentalism lives through inspiration, but is a product of transcendence. So, isn't that a very interesting perspective when you start to look at these Hermetic principles and how they relate to the chakra, right? And so the cause and effect is the Svadhisthana chakra, which is the chakra related to the womb and desire. And so that is also the element of water in Sanskrit elemental work. When you're working with the tattvas and you're working with the elements, that's Svadhisthana chakra is the chakra of effect and cause, which is desire, which is the womb. What do you think about that, dear brother, as a reference to the water course?
So you said the water, and then was the water the desire, and then did you mention the will as well?
Well, the desire is a product of the will expressed through the water. Think about it. Water is the desire that comes from the will. So when you will something into existence, it's like it creates a course, a water course, and the water then pulls everything into that point. No, does that make sense? Like a flowing river.
Yeah. So is it like the dance between light and water? Like the water, light is contained in the water. So like would the light or the fire be the will, and then the water is the desire. The water carries the will. It's like the dance of, and also the desire could be the unseen, potentially, like the it's a real shame I missed the podcast you did the other day because I was on another one for like 3 hours, but I've only listened to a bit of it. But you were talking about light. We'll have to have that conversation another time. But like the will is like it's the will related to the solar plexus, is it? Which is like the solar, which is the sun, like the fire, and the sun is in the darkness, which is in water. It comes from water. So that's the solar plexus or the solar flexes, the movement of the soul flexes, and it comes out through the water. And then the water would be related to the desire. That's really interesting. How they both link. Yeah.
Yeah, and the idea of the polarity the poles, the polarity is the flux and the potential moving between the poles. And you could think of that as sort of like air, because air bridges. Air is about communication. Yeah, it's about the bridge between two polarities. So when you're thinking about what is the bridge that goes across the water, right? That air that crosses the water is the bridge you could think of.
But also on air, the ether, air, which is it like the AE? It's like the connection of the masculine and feminine, which has been separated. The eth air is kind of like, well, it's got air in it, but also earth as well. The connection between earth and air. But it's interesting that the ether, or the etheric body, seems to be a bridge too, and it's like this. Is it like a watery fire, but the air moves it like a plasma, but like it's like a plasma, like a watery fire, but it's the air that moves it, or that kind of connects between the. I don't know. We have air between the waters above and the waters below, as well. And connecting to air, connecting to the earth, the waters below, and the air above. The air can kind of communicate, can kind of carry information between. I don't know. I'm just spitballing, but yeah, it's certainly interesting.
Here's the interesting point, right? For water to be able to okay, so fire needs to live, right? And fire can't live unless it's breathing air. How's that for a concept? If fire isn't breathing air, it can't live. If water isn't breathing air, it cannot propagate and sustain life. Isn't that interesting? So water needs to breathe air in order to be able to propagate and sustain life. Fire needs to breathe air in order to live. But in the process of water breathing air, the fire that's in the air, because the air is under the sun's radiance, is then carried into the water, and it tempers the water with the fire. And that brings the temperature of the water to a reasonable temperature so that it can propagate life. So it's like very interesting when you look at how this all works. Yeah. I'll give you an example. You go to the bottom of the ocean. Do things mate at the bottom of the ocean and propagate life? Not so much. I think they have to come up further to the surface where there's more oxygen, where there's more warmth, in order to mate. Generally, I don't know. Maybe there's some things. I think mating could be a problem down in the bowels of the earth, so to speak. And then the creatures have to probably float around, and then they probably have to sink down to the ocean and grow on the ocean floor. You know, I'm imagining some kinds of crabs or whatever kinds of things crawl around down there. But so yeah, I mean, the air needs to be breathed. And that's what's universal between earth and water. And when the water and the fire and the air separate, what's left is earth. Isn't that interesting? You speak about earth element, right?
Yeah, aren't they the three the three mother letters? Is it like Aleph, Mem, Shin?
Totally. Totally.
I believe, like, is it? I think Hecate is something to do with Hecate as well. Those three: water, fire, and air. Because that's what the earth is made of. Yeah.
The Shin, the Aleph, and the Mem. Do you know in Taoist alchemy, when you want to connect with the fire element inside yourself, you need to close your eyes, right? You need to sit down. You need to focus on your heart. And you need to listen to feel the warmth of the heart generating in your body. and listen to the sound of the hissing, because fire hisses like a salamander, and it hisses like a fire, like make that kind of hissing sound. And if you want to listen to if you want to connect with the element of air, right, then you got to listen to the sound of your breath being released, which is more like a like a aha, So even the inward breath has got a ha, and then the outer breath it's got a sa. But the root that connects the inner and the outer breath is the ah. And so the ah is the opening up of the breath system. And if you want to connect with the element of water, you got to concentrate on the coolness and the wetness of water, and the sound, the resonance, the you got to concentrate on that sound of the and if you go to the sea, you can hear it. There's like a humming of the water. So water hums because it picks up all the other vibrations. And so because it picks up all the vibrations, it sort of reflects the sound back at you. And that background humming is the element of water. Isn't that beautiful and fascinating? I don't know if you're with us. Kenobi might be busy. But
I'm here. I'll just turn my camera off, but I am listening. I'll turn it back on in a minute.
No, I'm with you, brother. I understand if you're doing things. So yeah, and it gets also interesting if you look at all the elemental in Chinese medicine. Maybe I can put it up on the screen for you. Let's see if I can put it on the screen for you. PayPal. Put it on the screen for the people, by the people, because we are the people.
Well, just while you're doing that, I'll say also to connect with the elements like fire, wearing red or orange is a good way to connect to that element, or to invoke that element within you, as is wearing blue to connect to the water element, and even like being near fire to connect to the fire element, and being near water to connect to the water element. It's that simple, because there's this book called Missing Element, Hidden Strength, that we all have a missing element, like one element which is slightly less than all the others. For example, mine I think is fire, but my water is really, really strong. So to help connect with the fire and kind of take action, to kind of have that sort of that drive, that will of the fire to get things done, I use a candle sometimes and wear red or orange, and that can help to invoke that element, apparently.
That's very interesting. And so we can see here, obviously, the kidneys and the bladder. The kidneys are really important because of the Jing, right? And the Jing is your sexual stored energetic essence, and it plays an incredibly important role, because that is like got to do with what we were talking about, mating. Yeah. So that's sort of like the key to mating. It's all done in water. Yeah, isn't that interesting? Sex, Like, if it weren't for the water element, like, could you imagine how, like, do you think plants enjoy sex? Here's a question to you people in the chat. Could you imagine being a plant? Like, my gosh, they'd take all the fun out of it. Yeah? Like, you're just shooting pollen off into the air and that's it. Like, you don't even know who you mated with. Like, at least mammals get to have, like, yeah, like, I like the way you work it, girl. You know? Whether you're a dog or a cat or a human or an insect, you get to go like, ooh, I like her. She's got my number all over her. And then you like this the whole like get together, get to know each other, and then like, you know, bada bam, bada bim bim, fireworks. And plants, they don't get to do it in the water. In fact, the water element disturbs plants mating. Isn't that weird, huh? If you think about it, that's like the most bizarre thing that you can actually consider if you really want to get down to it. It's one step away from crazy. So yeah, looking at the kidneys is like really important. Kidneys as well store our fear. That's another interesting thing, I think, because our fear is stored in our kidneys. So our kidneys, when they become unbalanced and overworked, they generate fear. It's the storehouse of our essence, right? That's where your chi is stored in the form of jing. The bladder is obviously metabolizing fluids, working with the kidneys. So they are storing and changing and transforming the ki or the chi, depends on what system you're coming from. The emotions associated is fear. When it's balanced, it's wisdom, calmness, and self-worth. So it's just very interesting when we look at these weakness in water element can lead to chronic fear, anxiety, lack of willpower. You see there?
Did you say the kidney is associated with fear and then also wisdom?
Well, that's a generic term, wisdom. The kidneys are associated with fear when they're out of balance, but when they're not out of balance, it's self-empowerment. But self-empowerment is being in your truth, right? Which is going to lead to wisdom in its own way, if that makes sense.
The reason I say that is because the word Sophia has been signaling to me sow fear, like sowing fear, and the fall of Sophia is to be buried, by fear and not able to expand. And the sort of the way to attain wisdom is to sow fear, sort of connect the threads so that the false evidence appearing real, what would appear to you, you can see past the illusion by tying the threads. So it's kind of in the name. So it's interesting you mention the kidneys being associated with water, and then fear, and then also you did say wisdom first. It's like it's kind of wisdom. So I think perhaps perhaps there's something to that the sowing fear, you know, to sort of tying the threads together, because I guess fear is disconnection, is separation, being separated from. And if we're able to sort of use the spell of fear to tie the threads, you can see more clearly, you can see beyond the wall, beyond the illusion, if that makes sense. So I think there's maybe something there with Sophia and sowing fear. And then the fall of Sophia is fear, basically, and that relates to our divine spark being buried in water, our light buried in water, and that the kidneys as well, being kid and knees. The kid is a goat, is like Capricorn, and the knees are also associated with Capricorn. So there's a connection to Saturn and the kidneys in the name. I'm not sure about anything else, but in the name, there's certainly a connection between Saturn and kidneys there. And our fear of Saturn, our fear of death. Yeah, perhaps we can get into that in a later conversation. I did send you a voice note about Sophia and the never-ending story, like our story. But yeah, is there an association with the kidneys and Saturn that you know of at all?
Well, that's an interesting point. You see, the kidneys are where the adrenal glands live. And the adrenal glands are related to the triple burner. And the triple burner finds its extension in the solar plexus, right? So when we look at the solar plexus here, right, we're looking at will. So the connection where fire touches water is through the will, where the impulse of fire becomes the managing, organizing principle of water. And the kidneys are like a translation point for that, which is why the chi is why it's so important that the chi is the place where this is refined and stored in the kidney, specifically in the jing. And so why there's this association with fear and sex, right? So when people become afraid, they want to screw. I don't know if you guys must know this, yeah? Like, you might find yourself suddenly drawn to a strange woman and want to have sex with her for no damn good reason because the two of you got stuck in a lift together. And she might feel the same way. And like, God forbid you ever get stuck in a lift with a strange woman. Sorry, this is my humor going off the wall. But yeah, like people that survive like traumatic fear circumstances end up becoming very sexually aroused. And often the person that was with them, there's that kind of energy. So it's quite interesting. That psychology, I think, has like looked at this. So, you know, the joke about being stuck in the lift with a woman might have some substance to it. But yeah, so there's that. And then there's also the triple burner is such an important point because it's what connects the stomach, the pancreas, the solar plexus to the throat, to the thyroid and parathyroid systems. That's what we call the anterior vagus systems, because you got the vagus systems, you got the posterior and anterior parts of the vagus nerve system. And so that system is connected to the solar plexus, where the triple burner, which is an extension, related. So the triple burner, just to give you an idea in terms of Chinese medicine, is basically the center through which your fight or flight is manifested into your body. So if something happens, you're either going to fight or you're going to flight. So your liver and your kidneys are wired into it in a very profound way, right? The liver is like very much like intense, right? The liver is going to have a response of anger. Let's fight. The kidneys is going to have a response of fear. Let's run. So the fight or flight systems of that triple burner are managed by the kidney and the liver. And the kidney and the liver work together. They're a synergizing pair. Fear and anger work together in your consciousness. They're a synergizing affair, right? If you get angry, you'll be afraid. If you get afraid, you'll be angry. Fear can be transmuted into anger and anger into fear. It's like if someone gets really angry with you, you might want to get afraid, right? If you get really afraid, you might become angry because of being afraid. Go and scare a dog and see what happens, right? Scare a dog, put the fear of God into a dog and see how that dog gets angry with you. You want to be chased by a dog, make it scared, make it feel unsafe. So there's this profound relationship in that triple burner space, which connects the throat, the Visuddhi chakra, vibration, to the principle of rhythm. Now, rhythm, you asked about Saturn, right? This is a roundabout trip, but this takes us back to Saturn. Saturn is the lord of time. And in Hermetics, the lord of time, Saturn, is referred to as the lords of rhythm. So the lords of rhythm regulate the solar plexus, regulate that burning space. Like when I ate food, it's my stomach and my solar plexus that digests that food. Saturn is digesting. And putting that into play. That system where all of that food that I ate, number 8, gets broken down and put into its proper place and rebuilt up in the body to become like substance. That's Saturn at work. That's the knowledge of Saturn. So, it's very much related to Saturn in a sense through the actions of the will. If that makes sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So in that sense, if Saturn's connected to the, oh god, what do you say? Like the digestion. Like the digestion is kind of the course as well, because I always associate Saturn with water, as it's linked with death and to die and to change, and death was always linked with water, traveling on water, and both Saturn and water have been demonized, like fear of traveling these rivers, neural pathways, streams of consciousness, expansion. But it's interesting because it's to do with digestion, which is kind of the course. Because when you eat food, you digest it, or you take information and you digest it. That's it taking course into effect. And I know that Saturn is to do with structure, which would be more of the effect. But you also have structured water too, which is like plasma water, and the matter, the earth in which we're in, is mother, which is matter, which is also water. So it's like we're kind of in water, and we're told it's solid, but it's not. It's more fluid. So that's interesting. That Saturn's associated with boundaries and limitation and stuff, and there's always seen as quite negative. But I'm not really sure which element it would be related to. I don't think it is water, but I associate it to water because of the reasons of that it's got however many moons that equate to 13. It's got like 270 something moons, which equal the number 13. And of course, 13 is Mem, and there's a link between Saturn and the Black Sun, and like time and memories as well, and Saturn being time and space. And within, we always like the only difference between us remembering everything or remembering who we are, it's just a matter of time. And it's a journey with Saturn, and we're knowing limitations, and our limitations are there so that we can decide like which route to take, because otherwise there would just be everything everywhere. So with limitations, we can kind of set a course, and we do that via time and space orientation. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. Yeah.
Sorry, I just want to say as well that with the will, which is kind of like the wheel, that which moves us, the spin, is that the wheel, like it's the air that moves the wheel, and that the wheel is like fire and water, like these two polarities, and it's the air that communicates between the fire and water, and that moves the fire and water, which moves our will. like you spoke about that like 10 minutes or so ago. So I've sidetracked a little bit. But yeah, man, if you had anything else to say about what I mentioned with Saturn or anything.
Let me try and recapture that. So yeah, Saturn, you know, like when I think of the water element and I think of the air element and I think of the fire element. So I think of the fire element as being one thing, and I think of the water element as being one thing. Then I think of the air element as holding them apart. So the air elements holds them apart, but reaches into the heart of each of them. And so the water breathes the air and the fire breathes the air. They both need to breathe the air. And the principle of life is necessary for this breath, the prana. And then the principle of earth is what puts them all together. So once the fire has been put into the water, right? And they've all been put together to the point where the fire burns out of the water evaporates from, and the air dries out. So you then have the drying out of the air and everything, the air evaporates out with the water because of fire pulling all the heat out of the substance, leaving it as just cold crystal, cold earth, rock. So the earth is a result of bringing everything together and distilling it. The Saturn then is like essentially like very interestingly holding all the elemental keys. So it has an association. I mean, if you look at the word Saturn, right? Earn. Like you earn money. But what is an urn? An urn is where you keep ashes, right? So Saturn's got that strong association with earning money, and with not being alive, and with those that have passed over, the urn that keeps the ashes. And then the ash becomes a symbol of earth, because the water and the fire and the air were all part of that process in order for the ashes to become the ashes, right? And so you can see how Saturn's relationship with fire is there. Saturn's relationship with water is also, like you say, profound relationship. What was the other thing that we said? Digests, right? The first part of the word digest is a cube, a die, right?
Well, multiple cubes. A dice is one, a die is multiple, because the word die means to change or multiply. So that would be the two cubes. Like on a tarot card, it's got two, hasn't it? Two black cubes.
I think so the dice is two and the die is one.
A dice is one, die is multiple.
Are you sure?
Go check it. Yeah, I'm 100% sure. Go check it. A dice.
That's so weird.
Well, it makes sense in like all the etymology of die. That you dye your clothes, you change it, like multiply.
That's so weird. They changed it since when I was young.
Really?
No, it's one die is singular and two dice is the plural.
No, let me check that.
Yeah. No, they didn't change it. I thought they had changed it, but I wasn't looking. Because the S connects the two die, right? The S is the transformation between the die before and the die after. So you die before, die after. You got one cube connecting with an S to another cube. So it's one die that goes through an S to become a second die, like rebirth, dice.
I need to stop saying that then on podcasts, because I'm like, oh, die means this, it means multiple because it's multiple dice. There's so many other things I could say, but I'm going to stop saying die means multiple dice then.
But
Whoops.
it's well, who knows how much they've doctored our language? You know, there's so much doctoring that's happened. But anyway, like the cube shape is what I'm sort of getting at, is the dies the cube is that to digest, right? And jest is a joke, right? To jest is a joke, but guest comes from the German word. Let me check it. I don't know if they can jest etymology high. No.
Is it related to a gust?
Proto-German. Hey?
Is it related to a gust? Digust?
Well, I think it has to do with gust.
Because
Guest.
also the gust is similar to the gut. To digest.
Well, according to our etymology, it doesn't have a relate, but I'm going to say that I don't believe what they're saying, because the geest, which is a G, geest, which is a J, jest, digest, is got to do with spirit, a geest. So then from that comes the spirit. So to digest is to use the Saturn to break the spirit open of something, of your food, and allow the spirit, the prana, to flow free in your body, right? And then to create another die out of that spiritual essence for your body to absorb the prana. And so we eat to absorb prana, which is geest. Geest is the old German. I'm sure it comes from Old German or Old Dutch. So I'm sure there must be some correlation there, even though it's been lost by our so-called etymology genius called Google. You know, Google is the etymological genius. We should all just be like, we're not worthy, Google. You're the etymologist of the universe. Let's bow to the AI. But I believe that there is a connection, because it seems impossible that there can't be one when we look at the narrative of what digestion actually represents spiritually and from an occult perspective. So that's quite interesting, you know. That brings us back to the die of digestion, and digestion is got to do with the burning space, right? So that's the burning of the food to break it down. The heat of the stomach produced by the heat generating elements from the pancreas and the gallbladder that secretes them in, and they create a fiery reaction. But there's fire and water, both part of the process of digestion. You need fire and water, and so you need both polarities active. So I think Saturn then represents the coming together of fire and water. And when you look at this, then you see that Saturn's got cardinal Earth as Capricorn and fixed air as Aquarius. And look at what Aquarius represents, is the holding of water, knowledge. So there's something about the fixed nature of air that can hold the water of knowledge as a cloud, can hold it carefully. And there's something about Saturn in the form of Capricorn, right? That can prioritize the work that needs to be done as the process of digestion. It's probably the hardest work the body does, yeah? Digestion. So it's quite interesting. I think Saturn is a combination of all of the elements, I think, in this way.
I'll just point out the digestion also doesn't necessarily need to be to do with like food in the stomach. It's more like food for thought also, and how we digest information too. Because what have I written down here? That the gust being related to like a spirit, as you say, or like a ghost. The digestion also ties into the realm of hungry ghosts, possibly. And if we're not able to digest the information, understand the course, just focusing on a quick fix of like Happy Meals, whatever, instant information, without understanding where it's come from, why it's there, where it's taken us. If we're not able to digest and dissect the information, which is what food is, right? Because I'm talking about the psyche here, not just food we eat, just any food, any information we our spirit digests. Is that this can lead us to the realm of hungry ghosts, where we're always trying to fill that space, because of, like, of course, the digest, dighost. That's how I got to realm of hungry ghosts. Is that if we're not able to digest our food properly, we're always going to be hungry. If we're not able to digest the information or the resonant frequencies properly, we're always going to be hungry, wanting more and more and more information and stuff. And that's what this artificial is. It's like artificial food, lab grown food. Well, we're getting artificial information, lab grown information. So I think they're interconnected, those two.
Yeah, it's quite interesting when you look at the TikTok generation. We're getting indigestible information. It's like it's not complete information. You can't fully digest it, right? It's like you have to just believe it because it's a short 1 minute clip or 2 minute clip or whatever. And the information is there, and you don't have time because digestion takes time and it takes contemplation. And so that's an earth element thing there, contemplation, to contemplate. That's how the earth element elementizes, right? And wow. So that's really interesting. I've lost one of my options here. I've lost one of the options of, how did that happen? Wow. They removed it. That is so weird. So they removed the option for being able to put us in, like, you know, a better shape for you with your camera. StreamYard has been full of crap today, man. That's all I'm going to say. I'm going to say it again. StreamYard has been full of crap. It's not giving me the option where it usually gives me the option to make us stand like that, you know. So it is what it is. But yeah, you know, the whole idea of digestion is very much more metaphysically. You know, you digest experience, you digest emotions, you digest thoughts, ideas, beliefs, and so it's like Saturn has got to do then with knowledge, right? And time then is the sort of the catalyst, and that's why it takes time to digest, right? Yeah, I'm actually, I think I'm gonna have to switch. What system have you been using? Have you been using Riverside or StreamYard? I'm curious.
Who, me?
Yeah.
I don't have a StreamYard account because I refuse to pay £30 a month. I may get a StreamYard account in the future, but Stein from Greyhorn Pagans has let me use his Riverside account, but I haven't used it yet. I'm not sure if I'll be able to because my Wi-Fi sucks where I am. I've got the best Wi-Fi we can get, but it still sucks. So I am going to try using Riverside, see how that goes, because I really do want to be making more videos and content and stuff. I've made videos on CapCut and then uploaded them, but I prefer doing stuff live, because making videos is, I'm terrible at like, I make a video, I spend ages on it, and I never release it. If I do a live, I think of concepts and thoughts and stuff I would never think of on my own, having a conversation. So I might start doing lives via Riverside, and then just asking people to ask questions in the chat. I just love talking with people. I find I don't really like doing solo content. I might do soon. I probably should, but just having conversations, you can get in this flow state, and this is why sometimes I can't kind of, I'm a bit like, oh, actually, yeah, that doesn't work, because I come up with concepts on the spot that I've never thought of before. It's not like, oh, I've been thinking of this thing. It's like, no, there's this new thing, and it happens often, and that's why I love live conversations.
Yeah, totally. And it's also much more digestible for the viewer, because it's not just one person's opinions, one person's ideas. It's not like a sermon. It's like there's a melting pot and there's different ideas, and so it gives people the idea. People are more likely to enjoy and want to think for themselves when there's more going on, more different opinions, and especially like not all opinions are going to always be the same, which forces people then to go, hey, well, what do I think? What do I believe? Which I think is like the whole point of what we're doing, right? Like we want people to think for themselves. We don't want them to, to believe us. You had a strong gag reflex, D-Love. Yeah. What did you have a gag reflex for? Was it like politics? Like if someone put politics on TV, you were like, give me a bucket. Was it like that? Or was it like the news? When I was a child, I had a gag reflex for the news and politics. When politics started speaking, I'd be like, oh, get me a bucket. Like, I couldn't stand it. Oh my gosh. Like, if you wanted to torture me as a child, put me in a room where the news is on. I'd be like, oh my God, get out of my head. Ah. Yeah, man. Gosh, it's funny to think how I could not understand why adults were watching it. I just couldn't. I was like, well, why are they watching the news? What's wrong with them? Like they could be doing something so much more fun than this. But yeah, I think there's definitely you're not fond of those who don't think for themselves. Hey, Tom Roo, I don't blame you. Yeah, Gaz, gag reflex the whole world. I'm really lucky that my moon's in Taurus, and so I've got a very strong stomach, which means like, if I was in a situation where somebody was injured and there was a lot of blood, I'd be the guy who can like, that'd be fine for me. Like, I'd be able to like, as long as my sandwich doesn't get into the blood, it wouldn't disturb me eating my sandwich. Like really, like I could be eating a sandwich with my right hand and cleaning someone's wound with my left hand, and it's not going to affect like my digestion or my stomach. It'd be like, I used to make jokes that like I could wipe someone's butt with my left hand and eat with my right hand, and it wouldn't affect me. Because I did look after disabled people, so I do know what it's like to wipe someone's bum, and I've done it all. So you got to have a pretty strong stomach to be able to look after a disabled person and do the necessaries. Yeah, man.
Yeah, I don't think I have a strong stomach. I'm not really too sure, but I wouldn't be able to do that because of the space in between. Like the space in between the sandwich and the blood, I know that they're mixing like in the air. Do you know what I mean? Like, I understand the flow of all things and like how it connects, and it's like I need a solid object between that and my sandwich. Otherwise, I think it's probably like maybe my imagination. I don't know, but I can just imagine that going
Like
into
glass.
yeah, yeah. Also, a thought just occurred to me because Tom Lewis mentioned thinking, like people who don't think or something. That because I've got a lisp and I've always had a lisp, it's like when I think of thinking, I think of sinking. Like thinking is sinking. You've got to like let it sink in. Like that's the digesting. Is like letting something sink in, and that is sinking, as in linking. But that's also like what thinking is. You're kind of letting
It's
something,
similar to drinking.
chewing on it. Yeah.
Similar to drinking. Because when you're drinking, it starts sinking, and that's the same as thinking. And it gives you an inkling, right? So to get an inkling, one has to be drinking, so that the sensation of sinking can be
And
experienced as thinking.
yeah, and the reason it's come to me that why I wouldn't want to eat a sandwich near like while changing someone's bum or blood is because of the mingling. Because
The
of it
mingling.
and the mingling of like the spaces in between in my imagination.
No, well, there is an element to that. I've got a very, very extremely strong sense of smell, which is interesting. Like when it comes to food, the only thing that bugs me out with food is when food is, if there's meat being fried, because that causes it to go extremely lots of pieces in the air, right? Like just think about it. You're heating it. And when you're heating it a lot, it causes the heat to rise, and all the particles rise up and circulate into the room because of the heating. And that's the one thing I have an issue with, is like if I'm in a restaurant and I'm too close to a grill, then I won't feel hungry, because it's like I can feel the meat in my mouth. But you know, it's an interesting point. Like I think it's got a lot to do with the microbes in the gut. I was noticing this the other day. And so people, you should be eating shiitake mushrooms. I can't say it enough. It's a prebiotic. You need to feed your gut prebiotics and probiotics to keep your gut healthy, because the prebiotics gives the probiotics time to propagate and to generate a good healthy population. And if you've got a good healthy population in your gut, then you don't get food poisoning easily. You don't get sick easily. There have been so many times that I've eaten food that have made other people ill. Go to a restaurant and you eat something and everybody else is ill, and I'm like, it doesn't feel very nice. That's it. I'll be fine the next day. I'll have a funny, weird number two. Be like, oh, that was a bit smelly. That didn't seem right. But everybody else is like retching, and they're like, they're out of action, and I'm fine. I'm like, yeah, well, it doesn't feel nice. It's a bit sore, but that's it. So I suppose it's got to do with your microbes. If your microbes are really well tuned in your gut, then you probably won't get sick easily. And I suppose it's a natural protection for your gut, because like this mingling in the air produces bacteria in what you're eating, doesn't it? If you think about it. Some part of me must be tantric. Some part of me must be agora.
Yeah, it just occurred to me that chewing more is really good for your digestion. Like chewing your food loads is really good for your gut. So dissecting the information, chewing on it, like dissolving it, I guess, like in the like with alchemy, like dissolving information you get.
Using
what
your
that-
anal eyes.
Yep, doing that. But when you're able to chew it more, it's better for your gut, and you have your gut intuition in your gut. So the more you chew, the more you dissolve stuff and see it with your anal eyes, see it with clarity, see it through the black sun, maybe. Looking at the black sun rather than the white light we're given. Then that's how you train your intuition, is by dissecting information, by really chewing on your food. That's using your mind, tapping into the all mind. That's why I come up with these little phrases. One is the stem instead of the system, understanding the psyche and where this information comes from, and then like if you understand, follow the course of where it's come from, like reversing it. So you get the information, reverse it, find out where it's come from, where it's traveled from, get back to the core, to the root of using your ancestry, connecting to the roots of this tree. Then you can understand why this information here is here, where it's come from, why it's being presented to you, and what you can do with it. And that is soul food. If you chew on this information we're given enough, and dissolve it and sort of connect to the stem, the main root of where this has traveled to your psyche from, then you can find the essence. And it's all about finding the essence, because this essence, I've always talked about the essence, and I think the essence is this black light, is this black sun or Ein Sof or whatever. That's the essence. That's the kind of this hidden substance, which connects all things. And then if you understand how all things are connected, like we're given so many different, like, compartmentalized, it's this, it's that. But if you find how things connect, it's more of a flow state. And that's really what we need to be getting back to, is more of this circle, this sphere, rather than this kind of cubed like structure, which has been placed around our minds. And I wrote this before you did start doing the live in regards to the pendulum swing, as that reminds me of the Overton window, going right, going left, the Overton window, and the sort of tick-tock of time is running out for the parasitic elite. And that the Overton window is the overtime window, that over time this window gets smaller, and they try to do what they can while the window's bigger to try and get away with what they can, because people have become desensitized, because the pendulum has swung so far one way, come back the other way. We see it with the right and the left, that it's just it's a circle. It's full. Yeah, someone's literally said full cycle, full circle. It spins, but we're told it's just either this or it's either that. Well, what the empire is they just go straight through the middle of the window, but time is running out for them, because the window for them is starting to close, and that's the Overton window, that it's gone so far both ways. It's starting to close in now. So yeah, spheres over squares, and it's just interesting that we have a sphere which is a circle, and that we were talking about architecture, and there's so many straight lines and stuff, which sort of reminded me of the Emerald tablets, and like this kind of, I think that you saw this as well, not that I've seen it, I've only heard it, but you've spoken about it too, with a journey you went on when you were meditating, I believe, about these beings that moved in straight lines, and we're being trained to move in straight lines. But if you can kind of learn to dissolve, you can like start moving in waves again, rather than start like moving in linear time. So yeah, this dissolving is to do with digestion and dissolving time as well, because time isn't time is like, it's necessary for us to be able to perceive, like our perception, like time and space is necessary for us to perceive things in this realm, which is a gift. Both time and space have been demonized, and that with this using time and space, we can dissolve time, we can dissolve space. But it's a dance. It's not just, oh, like dissolve it, we don't need time or space. It's like sometimes time is necessary, sometimes space is necessary. It's good to observe the limitations, but know that we can outgrow limitations. And the whole process of being here is to outgrow our limitations. But first, we need to recognize the limitations, the boundaries, which don't confine us. It's just a limited amount of time. So yeah, in regards to Saturn and digestion, that we can kind of dissolve things if we sort of chew on them more. And these tumors, which are the parasite, these elites, when we kind of start chewing on the information we're given more, they'll dissolve as well. Because like you can't kill this things, the shadow. You can only dissolve it, and that's what we need to do. We need to alchemize it. So it's alchemy. Really need some water.
Yeah, brother, absolutely. And you know, whoops, sorry, he escaped my finger. Go chill on the floor for a few minutes. Go and run around. That he's giving you so much. What I was thinking about, and I'm sure you're there getting yourself water. You can probably hear this. You were talking about ancestry, and it got my brain sort of thinking ancestry that I never realized before. So it's a tree, and it's an S tree. You can see the S there, right? If you look at the caduceus, right? There's the S, right? It's an S. You can literally see all the S's running down the tree. Whose S tree is this? It's Anne's ancestry. Who is Anne? Anne is the first supreme deity of the Sumerians. How did we miss that? The S tree of Anne, ancestry. And so our ancestry goes back to that point in time. Isn't that like a really interesting how the very word ancestry can be tracked back to the first Sumerian deity? Isn't that weird?
Yeah, that is interesting. I also view ancestry as our connection to the world tree, which is the toroidal field. Like we have a toroidal field around perhaps our DNA, perhaps our cells. We have one around us, but then we also have one around the earth. And I think that like around us here, like that's the shape of a tree. It has the stem, and it branches up and out and down and up through. The earth has this, we have this, and I believe that this happens inside of us as well. And for me, that's the ancestry, is connecting to that. And I view the one around the world as Tiamat, the ionosphere, the plasma, the aether, whatever you want to call it. That is around the earth, and yeah, that the ancestry is the world soul.
Yeah, it's just no end to recognizing how this etymology just, there's this universality of the old language. So we've been
Also,
going for...
I just need to say just very quickly that also the ancestry is the answers tree. The answers is the answers to the quest, and the tree. Well, we can break that down a million ways. Tree, trio, masculine, feminine, the child. But yeah, my phone's on 3%, so hopefully it lasts for us to part ways. If I do cut out, it's because my phone's on 3%.
Well, then it's fated. It's meant to be, because we're getting to. I realize we clocked over 3 hours. I didn't realize it went that long. But thank you, dear brother. It's been an honor. And you said answer, and there I see answer. Then I see answer. Answer. An is the sir that swear. It's interesting. Like it all comes back to an,
And
that's
aware as well, like awareness and awareness.
yes,
And
and
awareness.
the object.
Yeah.
Such a big part of our language. Well, thank you very, very much, dear brother, dear Shinobi. Thank you all in the chat. I hope you guys enjoyed the little conversation, got what you came for. Going to enjoy the rest of your week. Dear Toby, you have an absolutely smashing day. You, your partner, your little guys. I hope they're both good. Hope they're both well, and I hope the missus is well. And sending you big love, brother. Thank you for joining. It's been an honor. Thank you all for joining us in the chat. It's been absolutely an honor to be a part of this little energy cycle of sharing. Take it easy, keep it smiling, keep it sweet, and
Love.
don't forget, life is short. Make it count. Om Shanti.
Take care,
Big
brother.
love, big blessings.